Did we do it? Did we do it? Well, mercy me, glory be. We've done it yet again. Today, it's a beautiful day outside. Absolutely gorgeous. Got the sunlight just beaming in the window. Absolutely lovely. I actually managed to clean up my apartment today. Isn't that always lovely, right? I know everybody's got, and maybe it's your car, right? Maybe your car is just filled with junk, right? Maybe there's a closet in your house that's just full of junk. Maybe there's just like a little corner. Everybody's got one, right? Everybody's got one. And boy, howdy, does it ever feel good to just take a moment and just get it all sorted out. And it'll be that way for about 10 minutes. And then it'll just end up getting full of junk all over again. Isn't that always the way? But I'm glad that I did it. Glad I cleaned up the place. My little pug is losing his mind over it. Ligandies, you got an ad. So it begins. So it begins, right? I of course am of two minds, Ligandies, about this. On the one hand, I go, that sucks. I'm so sorry for your experience. I don't like that there are ads, but at the same time, I do enjoy money. Well, more specifically, I do enjoy paying rent. No, more specifically, I wish that our society was structured so that rent wasn't a thing, right? No, I wasn't. You're the late one. You're the late one, Famita. I've been at 6 o'clock. The one time I'm happy to see an ad. Well, I'm happy if you're happy, Ligandies. I gotta tell you, bud. I'm happy if you're happy. Because it is generating income for me. It is. Like, it's starting to come. It's starting to begin. All right, guys. I'm gonna play this one today. Whoa! Gotta sleep another month inside this car. The wage they pay me with don't get me very far. The chains that hold me break me down, but they don't scar. Can't even drink away my blues inside a bar, and this year sucks. This year sucks. Can you blame a man for trying to give it up, and this year sucks? Another day won't help that pain inside your back. The days get harder, but it's too hard to keep track. They keep you tied before your soul opens a crack. And God don't care what monkeys think about the facts. And this year sucks. This year sucks. Can you blame a man for trying to give it up? And this year sucks. So sit atop your pile of bones and bloody gold, and human sacrifice don't stop you being old. At least you'll die before the bomb you said explodes. We're gonna burn to death while doing what we're told, and this year sucks. This year sucks. Can you blame a man for trying to give it up, and this year sucks? It burns down anyway. It burns down anyway. It burns down anyway. It burns down anyway. Ads are being served. I got an ad too. I'll feel bad for the show if YouTube starts to associate my other viewing habits with this channel. Let me know if you get ads for anime and Snap-on tools. Hey, there we go, guys. It's so it begins. So it begins. So it begins, right? That YouTube and I had a little back and forth for a little while, right? It's trying to convince me. Let me know if the ads get too overwhelming, though. I literally don't know what to expect, right? So, like, I've gone through and, like, I think I understand what's going to happen, but... And I also think YouTube for a little while was like, is this guy crazy? Is this guy insane? Is this guy just going to be a nut job? We've recently done a little purge of leftist voices from our platforms. Nah, Ward. I'm a goddamn professional, right? But anytime good to see you, by the way, guys. Anytime anybody says logins, like all of the frying, right? And the frying is this. This is the frying. All of that you hear, right? That's all being done with my tongue and soft palate and sinus passages, right? That it's not here. None of it happens here. Right? That's where you damage yourself, right? You damage yourself if you're doing it, because you can do it. You can do it from here, right? And it sounds like this, right? So you can, and that's why you end up with smokers who sound like this. I read recently that drinking water makes your voice worse. Is that correct, John? No. I actually need to drink more water than I do. No. Water. You definitely want water. Like you want to lubricate it. You want it to be lubricated for sure. For sure. I'm actually really bad for this. Like I think I should be drinking more water. That I don't know where that information's coming from, but like hydration is important. Like we're like 90% water. Like we're like 100% water as far as I'm concerned. Like we're basically just water that got a voice acting channel now. Yeah. That's right, JR. You guys come here for the communism, but you stay for the voice acting, right? That's what it is. Yeah. I got to get my reel together, man. Like, people keep trying to encourage me to get a reel together and actually send out a reel. And I do. I got to sit down, because I got a bunch of voices, and, like, I got a bunch of shit that I can do, and I'm just, like, not doing it. So it's just, musicians I know, but I tend not to take everything at face value. And honestly, like, for everybody's different, and everybody has their own thing, right? All I know is that we're mainly water, right? Like, and it can't hurt you to drink water. I mean, I do think that, like, I get where people might be coming from, because if you were to drink water and then it does sort of reset things, and then suddenly you got to kind of struggle with the reality that there's more liquid in your throat, right? Like, so I get it. But anyway, is today's show going to be entirely dedicated to the Johnny Depp testimony or what? Let's go, Adam. Like, dude, the Johnny Depp testimony, right? Weird how we were only able to interact with the Ghislaine Maxwell shit through, like, pictures and stuff, right? Weird how, like, there's all these reporters and everything. When it came to Ghislaine Maxwell, there was this, like, real barrier, right? Really weird how, like, we couldn't actually watch the depositions, and we couldn't see the arguments, so we couldn't actually see any of the Ghislaine Maxwell stuff. But, Johnny Depp's on trial? Johnny Depp's in court? We got a 24/7 Johnny Depp all the time. Let's have back-to-back coverage, right? Of Johnny Depp style testimony and Johnny Depp style. We gotta get all of the pundits in. Everybody's gotta have an opinion about fucking Johnny Depp and his relationship with whoever is Stan and whatever is Stan, right? Which my official position on this whole situation with Johnny Depp is I don't care. Like, from a base human perspective, seems like he's gotten into some stuff with this lady, right? Seems like there's a bad scene going on, right? But, and I cannot stress this enough, I don't care. Like, I don't care. I care about Johnny Depp as a person. I care about the other person as a person. but it's their business. Like, it's their business as far as I'm concerned, right? Like, the fact that it's being broadcast at all, I consider to be odd. Like, I do. I consider it to be odd. Like, this is, if it wasn't for the fact that it was Johnny Depp, right? If it was just like Phil Harrison, right? And his wife, like Wilma Wilbertson, right? No one would care. It's a civil suit. Like, it's a civil, like they're having a civil dispute, basically. Like, this is essentially what it's about. And again, like, I don't actually know what the charges are or anything, because I don't fucking care. Like, I don't fucking care at all. Like, and in my view, it's just as cynically put on the table, right? It's as cynically put on the table as a way to just be like, let's just completely ignore. It's like what they did with the O.J. Simpson trial and the Anna Nicole Smith thing. Did you guys know that Anna Nicole Smith's death got more coverage than 9/11 did? Did you know that? Like, yeah, obsession with elites is a symptom of neo-feudalism for sure. Okay, you guys are calling for the numbers. Oh yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to do. And I as the professional that I am, was completely prepared. I'm going with the 7, man. I'm going with the 7. Lynch has been totally.
Here we go for today's number.
Harry with an 8.
21.
Nova Scotia with a 4.
2022.
Here we go.
10
We've already got three
ball
sevens.
Has a number.
2 9s. Here we go. 3.
Numbers 1 through 10.
Good. But you wrote out the 3, which is,
Swirl
I think, important.
The numbers.
Ward in with a 2. Got another 9. 3 9s. Guys, it's gonna be a 9 now.
Pick a number.
The 7s are screwed now. Here
Today's
we go.
Number
7.
Is 8.
Fuck you, Lynch. Fuck you. That's 4 times in a row. That's 4 times in a row. It's been on the other side. It's been 6s and 8s this whole flippin' time. We're getting robbed. Harry, you win. Harry, ding, 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 ding. Can't take it away from Harry. Harry doing the wise thing and picking. That's right. If one of us wins, if one wins, so do we all. May the energy of David Lynch carry into your life, Harry. Ask that girl out. Take the plunge. Push that bully back. Taste the rainbow. Verb that noun. And other various slogans. Gonna make a movie that makes no sense. God damn it, you do that, Harry. You absolutely pursue that. Funny hat. Yeah. Love it. Absolutely love it. I think that there's so many times that I'm watching a movie, and I will be watching it and just be like, this would have been better if they had to literally just cut all of the exposition. Like, literally, like, what I think Lynch does, right, is he writes a classic movie, just a movie that makes total sense to everybody, and then he just goes through and removes all the exposition, right? That's all I think Lynch ever did, is just like, he was like, oh yeah, they're explaining it. No. Right? And he just said to the audience, you figure it out. Right? Like, the Nazis are sealed in Azov style, yeah. Verb that noun. That's right. That's basic sloganeering 101, right? We've got a noun. What should people do with the noun? They should verb it. Verb that noun. Right? Just do it. Drive in the oncoming lane. Here we go. See our Strifey. Mr. Strifey here, figuring out what's going on. There really needs to be some regulation from the gambling board to be done. That's right. God damn it. I feel like there's some behind-the-scenes shenaniganery going on here. Right? Can you imagine if, like, some gambling board or something came in here and were like, this counts as gambling, and they, like, shut the whole thing down? Like, that's the way they get me. That I'm like, you're doing a number draw. Hey, Major, how you doing, bud? This is a quote from Dubois. I can never pronounce his name. Democracy has so far disappeared in the United States that no two evils exist. There is but one evil party with two names, and it will be elected despite all I can do or say. Yeah, I think this is the truth of it. This is the truth of it. You can retract that if you want, JR. I saw it. I saw what you said. Grinning. That's funny, dude. I see we're in a bit of a punchy mood today, guys. I see it. I could tell. WEB. Okay. Is it Dubois? Right? That's right. Right? You don't get a name like WEB Dubois. Right? I'm glad to hear that, Major, but I'm super glad to hear that. I could do a dice roll. I think it'd be worse. The whole reason why it's good, Nova Scotia, is because it's David Lynch. That's the entire reason it's good. If it was anybody else doing it, I wouldn't care at all. It's David Lynch, though, and I'm just like, that's perfect. Like, that's exactly... When I imagine, like, what would be exactly the right thing. Like, if I walked into a casino in heaven, and there was a roulette table, right? And I turned to God and was like, what's with the roulette table, God? Like, it's gambling in heaven? And God would be like, yeah, like, it's just random generation, bud. Like, you're literally just picking numbers. Like, it's great. And who is the person who is at that roulette table in heaven? For sure, it's David Lynch. Pick your number, pick your number. Black or red, pick your number, right? Absolutely. And I would just be like, David Lynch? Like, turn to God and be like, David Lynch? And God would be like, yeah, he loves it. Yeah, pick your number, pick your number. If you have the busiest shift of the year, you make the same wage as ever, while the company enjoys a nice profit surplus. Exactly. Watson, good to see you, bud. Good to see you. And of course, here we are, here in Ontario, right? We got another poll in from Abacus Data, right? Okay. Positive news. Positive news. The Conservatives are steadily declining. Right? They're in this sort of steady decline because we're getting closer and closer to the date. We're getting closer. What's the exact date? I should know this. I'm a professional. Ontario election date. June 2nd, right? So, like, at the end of this month, like, we're in it, right? We are essentially now entering the 6-week period in which people actually tune in and pay attention to politics, right? And there is absolutely no way that Ford is walking into this election without somebody saying, hey, have you noticed how bad he's fucking everything up? Right? Hey, have you noticed how everything's stupid? Have you noticed how dumb this guy is? Right? But what's the population's response to it? Right? Oh, the PCs are dumb. I guess we'll just vote Liberal again, the way we always have, the way we always do, right? Conservative, Liberal, Conservative, Liberal. I don't know why everything's getting worse. Conservative, Liberal, Conservative, Liberal. Like, what do you think? What do you think's going on, right? And the NDP just literally cannot figure their shit out. Like, that's what it is. That's all it is. They just can't. Like, I've been saying it for forever, right? The NDP need to fire their campaign strategy team. Like, I actually do think, like, their campaign strategists work for the opposition. Like, I really do. Like, it's if you cannot galvanize the public against a figure like Doug Ford, then you're not going to do any of that, right? And just, like, these numbers are embarrassing. They're negative 11 from the last election, right? Fucking... The Liberals are having a bounce back. Like, this is embarrassing for the NDP. Like, it's embarrassing. Meanwhile, the Greens enjoying a nice little plus, right? And then other, 4%. I like to pretend like other means communist, right? Mark Zuckerberg got sanctioned by Russia. Yeah, fuck Mark Zuckerberg. What a loser. Like, what a total fucking loser that guy is. Just, like, watch that movie. Right? Watch the movie that's about Mark Zuckerberg becoming, like, the CEO of Facebook. Like, this guy's a total fucking loser. Like, just absolutely betrays everybody around him. Takes credit for other people's achievements. But yeah, like, and this is the capitalist ethos that we're supposed to really be Like, yeah, the cream surfaces to the top. Yeah, the best fucking psychopath gets to the top for sure. United States is about to go through a massive right-wing lurch. For sure, that's true. Probably similar to what we experienced under Bill Clinton. It's going to be worse. It's going to be worse than that by a lot, right? Because, like, say what you want about the neocons, right? They were, like, you know, small government and all, even though they blew the deficit up and all this, right? But, like, they weren't giddily clapping about the wholesale destruction of the civil union the way that today's right-wingers are, right? That, like, nothing convinces me more than anything that we are gonna watch the United States descend into some kind of civil war than the reality of what the current right-wing is like, right? Like, these guys are calling for blood. Like, they mean it, right? And more, like, and these guys are dead convinced that Trump legitimately won that election. Like, they are dead certain about it, and you can't take them off of it. You can't take them off of it, right? They will come back at you with, like, what about this information? What about that information? What about this? And because there is, like, so much, right? And because the internet has actually given us access to so much, there's enough there to be able to kind of confirm that bias, right? And really pause and think about what this means, okay? Like, really pause and think about what this means. You've got a group of people who genuinely believe that they are living in a couped America. They genuinely believe that a coup occurred and that Trump didn't lose that election, but that the election was stolen, right? To them, it's not just rhetoric. So, like, these guys are going to be, and, like, it's hysterical because it's like, okay, well, if they stole the election the first time, what makes you think they're going to, like, not just steal it this next time, right? Like, why even participate in it? But they are going to participate in it, and they're going to participate in it in an enormous way, right? And I remember being a liberal and laughing. There was a commie in my Ontario riding last election. Now I hope they run again this election cycle. Yeah, dude, like, just stop. Honestly, I am of the opinion where it's like, just stop voting conservative and liberal. Like, you can vote for who you like, right? I understand if you vote NDP. I understand if you vote Green. Like, I get it. I'm not gonna, like, shit on you for it. I, like, vote communist for sure. But, like, absolutely, you've got to stop voting conservative and liberal. Like, it's just got to happen, right? And this whole narrative of, like, well, if we don't vote for the liberal, then the liberal will get in. Like, who cares? Like, I don't genuinely see a difference between the conservatives and the liberals. Like, I understand that liberals are more, like, head tilty, like, oh, it's okay to be gay, but, like, so they don't actually do anything in terms of policy or legislation that's meaningful. And it's not like the conservatives are actually, like, lynching these people, right? So it's, like, obviously a political grift, like, so obviously. But like, when it comes to the things that matter, like your rent, like your wage, like any of this kind of stuff, I don't see a meaningful difference. Like, Doug Ford is raising the minimum wage right now, just like fucking Wynne did, right? Wynne did the exact same thing. She raised the minimum wage right before the election, right? As an appeal to these voters. And she got wiped out. So I hope the same thing happens to Ford. Like, wipe this guy out. But the idea that he's going to get wiped out and it's going to be Del Duca? Like, what the fuck? Like, what the absolute fuck is wrong with us? Like, we literally have the option for a third party. Like, we've got a third option. And we're just not going to take it. Yeah, Ford Nation, bootlicking the lickest, yeah. Welcome to the good team, Comrade JR. That's right. That's right. Well, and I mean, the hope of this channel, the glimmering hope of this channel is that as things move forward, more and more people are going to be radicalized. And they're going to be looking around for places to go to foster that radicalization. And we're going to be here being like, hey, we also have been radicalized. We also believe that the system is a fraudulent failure, right? That has been completely co-opted by corporate power. Yeah, let's protest about it. Let's go to the streets. With the Electoral College in play, many an election is won despite losing the popular vote. Yeah, a strange system indeed. Yeah, absolutely, Harry. For sure. Because the Electoral College exists to maintain power within the wealth of the nation. Like, that's the whole point of it. It's to ensure that, like, if a kooky liberal gets in, right, if somebody who actually cares about the populace and wants to actually help the people, right, then it's less likely they'll win. My writing in right-wing wasteland, Sam the Sham, Oosterhoff. Ooh, Sam Oosterhoff, oof. Third option seems to have no interest in actually winning. Not that I think silly sock dems will do much different. I more or less am of the opinion that NDP leaders and NDP MPPs and things like this, they just want to be the NDP leader. That's it. That's their aspiration, right? I think about this, like, Jagmeet Singh, 100%. I think this of him. I think this of Andrea Horwath, for sure, is that she doesn't really care to be the leader. Like, she doesn't care to be the premier. Like, she's just happy being the leader of the NDP. Like, that's it, right? And, but, like, it's stunning to me, this result at this moment. I just am like, okay, like, we really are just caught in a feedback loop that we can't actually get through, you know? And it's just like PC liberal, PC liberal, PC liberal, PC liberal. And, like, what's the definition of insanity according to Einstein, right? Doing the same thing and expecting a different result. Like, Del Duca was in the room when they did the privatization of Hydro One deal, right? Like, and now we're voting for him. Staggering, just absolutely staggering. But I mean, given the total weakness of Horwath, like, she's so weak, like, she stands up and talks, and I just see that she's losing support. Yeah, it's because JT never got rid of first past the post. He was never going to. Why would the Liberals get rid of a system that benefits them? Like, that's the core fundamental flaw of that, right? Like, and if they're not going to actually confront things like that, then, like, we should have got rid of them then, right? Like, we should have voted for them, saw that they didn't do that, like, the one thing that everybody was like, yeah, rah, 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 and then got rid of them. And the fact that we didn't, and now he's, like, literally walking out in blackface. You're like, hey, I'm Justin Trudeau, blackface prime minister, right? Like, for fuck's sake. And for fuck, now he's, like, evoking, like, emergency measure shit and, like, wearing blackface while doing it, lying about literally everything. They're walking around saying, like, supply side economics is the way forward, like, this kind of crazed shit, and we're still voting for them. It's astounding. It's astounding. Like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, what I don't know what language to use, right? And so I'm not rhetorically saying this. I'm saying, like, do you guys know what language we should be using to describe this? Because to me, it's like I'm looking at a mental illness. It's like I'm looking at somebody who's just like, sure, he's completely lied about everything that matters. Sure, it's a complete and total sham and a total fraud. Sure, he came out in blackface. Sure, there's all the scandals. Sure, he's saying that the policies that we're pursuing are an abject failure from the start, right? Which is supply side economics. Sure, but, you know, if I don't vote for him, then the conservatives will blub in. Like, what? Like, what? What's that even matter? Who cares? What's the difference between Poilievre and Trudeau? The difference between Poilievre and Trudeau is that Trudeau will say, we need to care about climate change while doing nothing about it. And in fact, like, approving pipelines and buying pipelines and doing all that shit. Whereas Poilievre will say, we need to look out for the Canadian economy. And these environmentalists have gone too far while approving the same pipeline, buying the same pipeline, right? Doing exactly the same thing. So, like, the difference is that one's not going to lie about it, right? Like, the difference is that one lies about it, and the other is that the other one's just delusional about it. So, like, but the end result is the same, right? It's like we've got a little diagram that's like a choice thing, right? And it goes down like this, and then both of them end up in exactly the same fucking place. So who cares, right? And the solution is stop voting for these guys. Stop supporting conservatives. Stop supporting liberals. Like it's astounding that we keep doing it. Like it's an astounding victory of propaganda from the death cult. It's absolutely astounding. Perhaps if the NDP would stop taking advice from the likes of law firm Hill and Knowlton, things might change. Yeah. A council of neighbors should appoint their elector. I completely am with you on this, Horde, by the way. The districts are too big. And they're like that on purpose. It's always conservatives that do this, right? Mike Harris did it, and so did Ford, right? That they make the wards bigger, right? And the reason why you make the wards bigger and the districts bigger is to make it far more difficult for smaller groups to actually have any political influence, right? So instead of having like one elected representative for like 50,000 people, which is already quite large, right? Like 50,000 people is a really large number to have a single elector from, right? Instead of that, now you have like 150,000 people and a single elector, right? And so what does that mean? It means that the only people who this person can actually talk to are either the corporate owners, right? Or if that group of people do manage to create a local group that's powerful enough to challenge it, right? But if that's the case, then that group is probably going to elect their own representative, right? So it's like it's designed in order to disempower the populace and make it so that the only people who the elected representatives even talk to are basically corporate power guys, right? Lobbyists. Right? And I completely agree with this. Like I think that we should be reducing like our representative elector like I believe our representative electorates should like literally have like 5,000 people. Like that should be the level that we're talking about. That everybody that gets elected into this system should be elected and be listening to and responsible for about 5,000 people. That to me seems to be the most that I would accept. Like, for God's sakes, these polls that you're looking at here, right? The polls that they go through, like to create a poll that has a degree of accuracy, you see them talking to about 2,000 people, right? So they're talking to 2,000 people to pull these polls out, but we're supposed to have an elected representative who represents 100,000 people, and you're expecting a positive outcome from this? No, it's never going to work that way. So, like, if we want to actually live in a true democratic system, we've got to really reduce, like, and create more opportunity for people to engage in the system. And the best way to do that is to make it so that instead of a single representative representing 100,000, 200,000 people, they represent like 5,000, and maybe even less. I could be very convinced about less. And what the conservatives will say to this is always like, "Oh, how are you gonna pay for that? It's gonna be so costly." But doing it this way is more costly because you need to hire so much more staff to actually manage this, right? It's ridiculous. Liberals are the most shameless of all right-wing reactionaries. Yeah, they are, right? Like conservables. I like conservables. Conservatives are just delusional, right? Like. The denying of climate change has got to be like the most delusional thing that's happening today, for sure. But I think that they're honest. Like, really. Like, when I listen to them, I'm hearing them, and I go, oh, you guys are just deluded. Like, you actually think that this would work, right? And I came to this conclusion with Stephen Harper. As we're getting removed from him, you analyze him from afar, and you see, okay, what did he actually do, and how did he actually rule, right? And he was always like, free market capital is the way to go, right? We gotta get government out of the way, right? Really empower and he believed it, and he did it. So like, he said he was going to do it, and he did it, right? No bullshit. And like, I think that that's a more respectable position than what the liberals do, right? Like, I would prefer to have. I've said this before on this channel. I'll say it again. If the choice is between a guy who's saying I'm gonna punch you in the face, and a guy who says I'm not gonna punch you in the face and then does, I'm gonna vote for the guy who says I'm gonna punch you in the face. Because if he's going to be honest about punching you in the face, then he's probably going to be honest about other stuff. And at least when he says something, you know he's going to do it. Because he's going to hurt you, right? He's going to walk up to you and he's going to punch you in the face. Like, got ya! All right, cool. So that means that you know if he says, like, yeah, we're going to raise dental coverage by 0.5%, he's going to do it. Why? Because he's already punched you in the face, right? Whereas these guys, I'm not going to punch you in the face. I'm not going to punch you in the face. Oh, you voted for me? Oh! Well, now you can never believe a thing they say, right? And yet we keep voting for them. Why? Because they keep lying, right? Oh, yeah, but he says this thing he's going to do. Yeah, I know he said he was going to do that, but then he didn't. And then I know he said he was going to do that, and then he didn't. And I know he came out in blackface and said he was going to do that, and then he didn't. But this time, he said he was going to do that, and this time, he's for sure going to do it. For sure. Like, there's this guy that shows up on my feed on TikTok, and he's just a dude who like does stupid games, right? Like it's like a scramble puzzle, and he's trying to figure it out. And if I love this guy, because the only way that I can describe this guy is, and I'm not gonna like out him because I think what I'm about to say is kind of mean, but he's like preciously dumb. You know what I mean? Like he's very, very dumb, but like you love him, right? You love him. He's trying so hard, and he's committing, and he's always wrong. And like for real, like the guy talks like this. Oh, bamboozle me this. Okay, what are we looking at today, right? What's that? Oh, purple. And then the answer is like green, and he's like, oh, there isn't even a P. Oh, okay. Oh, okay, next one. All right. Bamboozle me this. Oh, right? And I love him. I love him to pieces because he's so animated and so beautifully committed to his failure. But one of the things I think about all the time when I get talking with like conservative types and all this is like, oh, you guys are like that. Like but instead of it being like a scramble puzzle, it's like the fate of the nation. Right? And it's just like so you're like charmingly dumb, but like I really would like you to not be so bad. Do you know who I'm talking about here, Famita? Do you know who I'm talking about? I hope so. I love this guy, dude. I love this guy. I think he's so great. I really do. Like, if I knew this guy in real life, I would be like, what a great guy. Like, what a great guy. You could tell, like, he's a churchgoer. Like, you could tell he's just trying to do the right thing, right? Yeah, I think this is it, man. Like, she's just there to provide dissent, not actually get elected. Yeah. There's a good reason they go with Horvath. They just don't want to get elected. Just split the left vote, make the right seem relevant. It's all to facilitate the illusion of choice. I think there is something to that, Matthias. Like, it's not as simple as that, I think. Like, I do think that, like, the NDP is more representative of, the NDP is more representative of the working union, right? Like, the worker in the union, right? Whereas the Liberal is more representative of the managerial class, right? So, like, if I were to break it down, it would be, like, the working unions, and then the managers of those unions, and then the conservatives are the owners, right? That's the little sandwich, but it's all capitalism, right? That the unions themselves have been co-opted and bought in to this capitalist structure. The Liberals obviously have as well, the managerial class, and then the owners, right? So it's a little like blue, red, yellow, or orange sandwich that is capitalism. And of course the NDP and the Liberals, like they operate against one another because that's how it's structured in life. That the managers operate on behalf of the ownership class against the workers. And so this idea of like a Liberal NDP like merger or something like this, it's not going to happen, right? Because they're antagonists in the first place. So in a way, it is like actually quite reflective of the antagonisms that exist in the society in the first place, right? But like at the same time, like the workers of the NDP are so capitulated, right? Like when people go on strike here in Canada, they're going on strike for like a 1% increase to their wages, right? Like that's the level that we're at. Like I'm sitting here being like, you guys should go on strike for direct control of the company. Like you guys should be saying like these capitalists are worthless and are a drain on our society. Like what the Fight for 15 was just like completely emblematic of this to me. That I literally was sitting there being like, oh, so we're like we're kicking the hornet's nets for like complete and total scraps. Basically saying, please let us live. Please let us have a living wage. Like that's begging for scraps, right? And they won't even give that, right? They won't even capitulate on people should have food and shelter for working full-time jobs, right? Like they won't even capitulate on those lines. So like we've got to stop trying to negotiate with these guys. But like the whole system is just capitulate. Everybody's basically got their own, like they're in their own raft or in their rowboat, right? Or in their boat or in their yacht, right? Everybody's got what the little kind of thing that they have, and they've been scrabbling their whole life to get it, right? And everybody knows that there's this enormous tsunami coming. Like everybody knows it. And instead of being like, okay, we got to get all the boats together, right? We got to tie everything together. We need to create like a superstructure that's going to be resilient about this. In fact, like we can see there's people living on like little tiny boats that are definitely not going to make it through the tsunami. That's obviously coming. There it is. We've got footage of it. And instead of like taking people and getting them into the fucking super yachts, and instead of taking people and like creating barriers and pulling boats together and tying it all together so that when the waves come, we'll all be able to withstand it together. Instead of that, everybody's just clinging to their little raft and being like, okay, I got my little raft. I'm just going to hang on to this little raft and we're going to get through this thing together. We're going to get through this thing and oh, here we go. And then the tsunami's going to come and it's just going to wipe out just huge sections, right? Huge amounts of these little boats are just going to get wiped right the fuck out. Some of the bigger boats are going to get wiped the fuck out, man. It's going to be like a cleansing by natural force of just like, and you're just going to have tons and tons of people in the water, right? And like, and what are the people in the big yachts doing? They've got these big empty yachts, right? That they're on, right? Well, when the tsunami ends, right? They're just going to look out the window of their big giant super yacht and just say, swim harder. And that'll be it. Like, it's time to start occupying those yachts. It's time to start getting inside of those yachts and basically just telling the people who owned them, go fuck yourselves. Like, it's pretty straightforward in my perspective. Like, we're acting as though this system that we live in has legitimacy, and it doesn't. Like, that's the big thing. That, like, we really are saying, like, oh, like, sure, there's a big giant pile of food there, but there's this little checkbox that we need to go through. This little, like, imaginary thing that says, like, checkbox, you got to subserviate yourself to a death cult in order to go to the pile of food and get food that you need to live, right? And people are like, it's like I'm watching people starve to death at the foot of the giant pile of food because there's like a checkout thing that they got to go through, and instead of literally just walking up to the pile of food, taking the food and walking away. Like, the system that exists to exclude us from the prosperity, and it's going to have very significant consequences. To look like our politicians are actually doing something, yeah, when they aren't. This is Horvath's last election? I don't think so, Watson. Like, she's going to hang on for as long as she can. She wants to be the leader of the NDP. And then the next NDP shill will be put in place. Yeah. There are good people in the NDP. Like, there are good voices in the NDP that I think would actually be interesting in a position of power. But Scarborough Southwest riding is 100K plus, yeah. What's up, David? How you doing, bud? The cons could run a bale of hay in my ride. Yeah, I feel that way sometimes, dude. The cons could run a bale of hay in my riding and it would win. The Christian Heritage Party regularly gets 1,000 votes here in federal elections. Greatest minds of the 10th century, yeah. Haven't been here in such a long while. The beard is back. I know, right? It just comes back, David. I can't stop it. They revived Quebec's Conservative Party. It's making a comeback. Don't know if I should laugh or cry. I mean, that just tells you how weak our political class is, right? Like, this is why it's so dangerous what we've done to chase socialists and communists out of the political apparatus, right? Because all that's left then is just fascists, essentially. And so the pushback has got to be real. That was one of the things about the Harris-Eves government in the province. They could say a promise made, tax cuts, a promise kept. Yeah, like if you promise to kill someone and then you kill them, you can say I kept my promise, right? And as long as there's no conversation about the validity of what you've done, right? Then sure, you're great. You're the greatest person alive. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, I ain't gonna get fooled again. I love that, by the way. I love that, right? Like, when it happened, everybody made fun of Bush for being an idiot, and I really thought to myself, no, that's it now. Like, it's the fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Forget that. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, I ain't gonna get fooled again, right? Like, just straight up, like fucking Biff from Back to the Future, right? Now make like a tree and get out of here. In the U.S., our representatives serve 80,000 people. Way too much. Like, way too much. Faced with that, it's logical they serve capitalists, since capitalists are basically agents of the state. Yeah. I mean, like, all it means is that the representative can only ever talk to the, like, most powerful person in that group. Because there's just too many. They can't talk to everybody, right? So you need to create, like, a smaller grassroots organization to even have an opportunity, right? If a conservative or Mike Tyson warns you about something, trust it will happen. Dude, absolutely. Mike Tyson is telling the truth. Do not fuck around with Mike Tyson. You saw that video recently where Mike Tyson beat that guy up on the plane? Like, yeah. If they enrich a capitalist, they might hire more people. It's like feudalism. Yeah, exactly. Maybe the Lib could bring back the Social Credit Party in Quebec. Obscure, defunct Canadian political parties. I thought you were talking about the Rad Brad. Great impression. I've seen him around. Yes, fantastic. I love this guy, dude. I'm gonna do him again. Like, I literally look and I think, like, average conservative voter. Bamboozle me this. Okay, guys. What flag is this? What flag? Uruguay. Cuba? Is Cuba a country? Oh. I love him, dude. Like, he is just like a character. He's just such a figure. The NDP is representative of the AFL-CIO CLC bureaucracy, and they use rank-and-file rhetoric to obscure this. Yes, Watson hitting it. Yeah, work hard and you might rise up to the managerial class. Exactly. That's what they mean when they say, like, get a better job, right? It means like, oh, you're a worker, so you're not represented by a political class, so you need to get a better job, so you'll be represented by a political class. And then if you're disgruntled with that, then you just need to get a better job so that you'll be represented by the managerial class. And if you don't like that, then you just need to become an owner. Right? Base, how you doing, bud? I hope you're doing great, bud. I hope you're doing great. You know what, man? I am feeling great. I'm feeling great today. I cleaned up my apartment. I feel like I did all the stuff that I need to be doing. Making it happen. My character in Elden Ring is going very well. Thank you very much. Children giggling in the background. Yeah, they're right outside my window, right here. You bet. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, yeah, you can't fool me again. Yeah. Does Brad give money to Evo event? True journalistic integrity here. Yeah. So, like, this whole thing is just as well, like, productivity is just how much wealth can be extracted from the working class. That's what productivity is. Speaking of, productivity and real incomes are still drifting further apart. Yeah. right? Like, you should know this, John. I mean personal productivity. Oh, yes. No, I understand what you mean. I understand. Look, all I know, Famita, is that my room is not my room. My room is a whole other conversation. My kitchen is clean. That's what I know. Okay? And I'm happy that my kitchen is clean. It's going to be like that for a day. and I say to myself, like, I'm going to make sure this time it's going to stay clean. This time I'm going to do it. All I got to do is at the end of the day, just clean up the few dishes I've got, and then it'll be clean and everything will be great. But then what always happens, right? It's like, well, this dish needs to soak. So I'm going to put this in the sink and then turn this on and fill this up. And this needs to soak, but I'm going to take care of it tomorrow. Then I come and look at it tomorrow and go, no, it's just a couple of dishes. It's fine if they sit there for a little while, I guess. And then before I know it, like the whole thing is just like, no, of course capitalists don't have this problem. They hire people, right? They hire people. Like, of course. That's what they mean by productivity. Yeah, my kitchen is clean. Hashtag life goals. That's right. That's right. Seeing as Horvath and the NDP will never ever win an election, they should promise a new house with a car in the drive for every Ontarian. Then they wouldn't win, but at least it would add a little excitement to what is usually a somewhat boring election cycle. I'm just blown away at how weak Horvath is. Like, there are so many things that she could be like pounding the pulpit on. Like, and it just seems to me more than anything that Horvath and the NDP don't understand that 99.9% of voters are single issue voters, right? That what you really need to do to galvanize a populace and to actually get them convinced to go in with you is to pick a single issue, right? A single issue, and just pound on it and pound on it and pound on it and pound on it. And just like die on that hill. You've got to pick the hill you're going to die upon, right? For you think about Doug Ford in the last election. Literally, I'm going to reduce your hydro bill, right? Buck a beer, sure, buck a beer, right? That became like a fun thing for, I think, leftists and centrists to sort of make fun of. But really the thing that Doug Ford was like pounding and pounding and pounding was, we're going to get your hydro bill reduced, right? Which I think people, like, given the McGuinty win years, like that spoke really deeply to people's concerns about what was going on, right? And and Horvath just doesn't seem to understand that, right? She just keeps talking about things in like a milieu, in like a mosaic, in like there's this like holistic sort of way of running her campaign, and it's just not how it works. Like, people want a slogan for the people, and they want an issue. I'm going to lower your hydro bill, right? And it's not like Horvath doesn't have major issues that she could be pounding on, right? We are going to reduce the cost of housing, right? Pound the shit out of that. Reduce the cost of housing. Reduce the cost of housing. Reduce rent. Reduce the cost of housing, right? Just keep saying it. Reduce the cost of housing. Reduce the cost of housing, right? People ask you how you're going to do it, right? You could even just be bullshitting, right? People are ready. Like, people love bullshit. People love bullshit. But like, nobody is going to buy in to like this holistic, like, kind of limp, like they want a single issue and a slogan. That's what they want. All the evidence exists in the world. Like, I don't have a dishwasher. Neither do I. I don't have a dishwasher either. Sad. But I make chili and curry and eat for a week cheap. Yeah, I do this too. This is exactly what I do. And then it takes me forever to actually clean the thing that I did. I'm terrible that way. For political comedic relief, we need the resurrection of either the Rhinoceros Party or the Natural Law Party. Yeah. Yeah, it's not fair that you have a certain weight because your relation to... You have to live a certain way because your relation to productivity. Yeah, dude. Like, no, we're done. We're done. Like, line goes up, things good. Like, it's so dumb. You know, in the last election, the NDP proposed buying back Hydro One from its private investors. that was a good idea. They didn't really expand. But this is what I'm talking about, Watson, right? Like, is that the NDP present them like, and leftists generally have this problem. It's something I've really noticed, right? Is that because leftists work so hard to know what's going on, right? And they have all of this information and they've got all of this kind of stuff. But where leftists fall down is that when it comes to communicating that idea to an electorate, right? They think that the thing to do is to like bring out the board and like show people, like walk people. All we got to do is get people convinced of this 3, 4, 5 page document, right? People are 5 words, man. You got 5 words. That's it. That's it. Like, they're not going to listen to anything else, right? They don't have time. They don't have energy. They're not interested, right? That and leftists. This is why the right, for years now, have said the left can't meme. That's what this means. The left can't meme, right? When you take a look at leftist memes, it's like a picture of like an obscure figure in history. So already you're like, who is this? And then like a paragraph, right? And meanwhile, the right-wing stuff is like SpongeBob going like poop, and that's it. That's the meme, and it works completely. And you're like we got to get there too. Like, we got to get there too as leftists, and we've just got to. Yes, and that's exactly right, Watson. That Richard Wolff has made complex concepts simple to understand. And I was critiquing Stalin recently for this, that his writing is fairly reductive and like pretty like it seems very simple. And so I was critiquing Stalin for it. And then somebody pointed out, well, isn't that just doing that so that anyone can understand it? And I thought to myself, that's actually probably right. And probably a reason why Stalin was seen more as a man of the people over Trotsky, right? That when it came down to it, people went Stalin's way, because I think Stalin was trying to write in a way so that the average man could understand, whereas Trotsky didn't seem to care about that. Trotsky was exactly this type of leftist that I'm talking about, where it's like very intelligent, extremely well read, extremely verbose, right? But not really connecting to, bamboozle me this, right? Like, not really connecting to those guys. What do Trotskyists think of Parenti? Parenti's a baller, dude. Like, all of Parenti's writing is super, super baller. Like, the one phrase that comes straight from Parenti that everybody should know is the global South is not underdeveloped, it's overexploited. That phrase is very, very powerful, right? Very powerful. Stalin didn't contribute to or expand on communist theory. He merely helped enunciate it. I think that's actually accurate, and and a fair critique of Stalin for sure. That really, like, he is in the end like the man of the people figure, and I'll say it over and over again, man. Like, Stalin and Trotsky, if they had been able to work through their shit, if they had been able to put it together, but this is the Richard Medhurst is live right now. The U.S.-backed siege of Yemen, fantastic. Richard Medhurst, a total baller, right? I don't know if I care for you advertising for other live streams, Famita. Quick, everyone leave my live stream and go to Richard Medhurst's live stream. All right. Next slide. Like, sign of the times, right? Sign of the times. Like, what do we need to be saying, right? What do we need to be saying? Oh, you want my opinion on Richard Medhurst or on the U.S.-backed siege of Yemen? Like, first of all, Richard Medhurst is straight up, right? Richard Medhurst is straight up. Like, he's a powerful voice who is obviously working hard to try to pierce through the veil. You're right. I am silly. I'm in a silly mood. I'm in a silly mood today, which is good. It feels good to be in a silly mood, I got to tell you. And I got a little pug down here who's super silly right now. He's super losing his mind. So Richard Medhurst for sure. Like, absolutely follow this guy. The Siege of Yemen, My view. So let's Google Maps, and this is just me being somewhat speculative. So what follows? I don't actually have the document. I don't have like a thing that's like this is just sort of my general observations of what's going on in Yemen. So there's 100% a genocide happening in Yemen. The Yemenis themselves call it a genocide. You just need to take a look at pictures of Yemen right now to see that it's absolutely blown apart, right? So the question then is why? Why is this happening? What's the point of facilitating a genocide in Yemen? That's like the genocide in Israel makes a lot of sense, right? Like this is straight out just a theft of land to build a giant military base, right? Like it's a big and it's perfectly placed, right, in terms of its military strategic capacity, right? It completely blocks off this route from Africa into the Middle East, right? It causes a lot of problems for locals, and it gives you a lily pad that jumps into Iraq, right? But what's the point of this genocide? Like, what's the point of the Yemeni genocide? And that's the question I keep asking myself, right? Why? Of what importance is this? Why does this matter? And near as I can tell, it's occurring because okay, I'll start from the beginning and give my feeling. So in 2008, there was the Arab Spring, right? The organization that came out of the Arab Spring, right, was the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood is the one that won the elections. They held elections, and the Muslim Brotherhood won, and were promptly couped, right? There was a coup right away that took the Muslim Brotherhood out of power because one of the Muslim Brotherhood's main modus operandi is the destruction of Israel, right? Like, the Muslim Brotherhood looks at what the Israelis are doing to the Palestinians as evil and think that the Israelis should be destroyed for it, right? That's very, very clear, and that's not a secret, right? They're very open about it, and so it makes sense that Arab Spring happened, leadership got overthrew, elections were held, Muslim Brotherhood won, Americans being like, yeah, no, that's not a thing. Coup it, install our own guy again, right? Like, from the American perspective, it makes all the sense in the world. But what that means, right, and what that should tell us, like, those Muslim Brotherhood guys didn't just vanish, right? They didn't just disappear into the ether, right? Like, they're still there, right? And what does that tell you more than anything? That they are the most organized people in the region, like, by a lot, like by significant margins. And so that's what happened in Egypt. Saudi Arabia's right here, baby. Like, Saudi Arabia's right here. And like, it's extremely believable to me to say, okay, like, if there's a Muslim Brotherhood organization like really operating and really, really going here in Egypt, it's very, very, very believable to me that there's similar things happening in Saudi Arabia. These guys experienced, like, these princes, right, experienced a coup. These princes are going, boy, I would not like to experience a coup, right? And so they're doing everything they can to maintain power in their own region. And one of the ways that they're doing it is by ensuring that Muslim Brotherhood forces in Yemen and Oman can never organize and have to deal with a crisis that the Saudis themselves are creating. And so I am more or less of the opinion that the reason why there is a Yemeni genocide is because the Saudi Arabians are fighting a war against a force that is seeking to coup and overthrow the Saudi princes. That's my perspective and my perception of what's going on. Again, I don't have, like, if somebody were to pull out a document and be like, John, that's bullshit, and here's why, I will cede to documentation on this for sure. But that's just kind of what I see. And you don't hear this narrative very much because why would the Americans want you to know? Why would the Western media want you to know that obviously the Saudis are interested in committing to a war and a genocide in Yemen in order to maintain their own power and privilege? This is why I call the Saudis Machiavellian geniuses, right? They're political geniuses. They're psycho, right? They do really evil shit all the time, but they're always on the right side of power, right? They're always on the right side of power. And I don't see that changing anytime soon, right? And of course, then you start to ask, okay, well, why do the Americans want to be involved in this, right? Like, why do the Americans want to be involved in this? And it is because that Saudi Arabia has been their major ally in the region this entire time, right? That, like, if the Americans don't have the Saudi Arabians as allies on their side, then they lose a lot of power in the region. And so they want to help with this, and they want to make sure that those Saudi princes are in place. They don't want to deal with a coup, right? They don't want to deal with an uprising, right? Wahhabism emanates from Saudi Arabia. Yeah, and like also though, like anytime you listen to the Saudi princes talk about Wahhabism, I think they're just using it as a political tool. Like, that's all. I don't think that the Saudi princes really believe in anything, right? Like I think that they will just like someone like Donald Trump, right? Like, Donald Trump is happily going to use Christianity and happily going to use any kind of iconography he can in order to facilitate his point and talk to whoever he needs to talk to. And I think the Saudi princes are very much like that. That oh, it's Wahhabism? That's what you guys are all talking about? The Wahhabism, right? I think that's really what it is. Simplified, partially due to being a U.S.-Saudi proxy war against Iran, oil for power, etc. Yeah, I think that this here is also something, right? Like, that's fair as well. Like, and America just wants this region to be in chaos, right? America generally wants this area to always be in chaos, because as long as it's in chaos, it can never form up and create any kind of federated body. It can never organize in any kind of meaningful way. That it's easier to go in and blow places up and steal their resources, right? Like, it's easier to actually commit genocides and do terrible things in this region. But moreover, from a major geopolitical standpoint, if this is in chaos constantly, well, places like China and Russia can't go in and trade, right? Can't actually go in and do anything meaningful, right? Oh yeah, Watson's super well read, dude. Like, absolutely. No, this is what I love most about this chat, honestly. Like, we got guys in here like Mocked. Mocked always lays down some wonderful point. Like, this Stalin point was absolutely brilliant. Watson's super well read. Famita, you're a brilliant writer. Like, for real. And like, people come in here, man. Like, and this is what I love about this chat. It's that it's not just like, it's just not like word vomit, right? Like, it's not just word vomit. Like, I feel like I learn a lot from you guys. And I feel one of the things that I think is really wonderful is that it keeps me honest. And that's what I really value more than anything, right? Like, I don't want to be espousing bullshit. I don't want to be wrong, right? I don't, or at the very least, I don't want my facts to be incorrect. And so if anybody comes in here and is like, document, you're wrong, document. I don't want to be the guy who goes, well, that doesn't mean anything because of this. I want to accept reality and facts as fast as possible. And I feel like you Bumble Guppy, you're beautiful too, buddy. You're beautiful. I love your contributions, dude. Some of the stuff you say, bud, like, I feel like a twist in my brain, some of the stuff that you say. It's great. To maintain power, the House of Saud capitulates to the Wahhabites and allows them free reign in regards to education, fundamental Islam. Yeah, that's exactly right, Watson. That's exactly right. And I believe in bread supremacy. You bet. I'm gonna get that bread crown, you guys. It's gonna happen one day. I know exactly what would happen. If I got like the bread crown and just wore it even as a joke, right? That's the clip, right? Suddenly I'm going to become known as the bread guy. right? And that's the clip that's going to circulate. And then I'm going to spend like 10 years of my life of everybody looking at me with this like, oh, you're that idiot bread guy. And I'm going to be like, dude, it was like a joke. Like, it's just, I was just being silly for fun, right? Like, and it's like the innest of the in jokes. Like, for me to explain it to people is just like, and then my favorite part about it, of course, is that if I got known as the bread guy, I'm gluten intolerant. So like people would be like, "Ah, you really love bread," and I'd be like, "Actually, I'm gluten intolerant." Bread tube. Dude, bread tube is such like imperialist porn. It's such like imperialist porn, man. People on BreadTube, they're dead convinced that like all of the imperialist propaganda is so totally correct. If you go in there and are just like, that's factually incorrect, they just shit all over you. But they don't ban me. They don't ban me, right? So I keep doing it, right? If they're not going to ban me, right? If all they're going to do is just like downvote me and say like, you're stupid and not like, and I'll be like, okay, can I get a source for your claim? And then fine. Oh yeah, BreadTube is a giant sock dem reach around, dude. Like these guys genuinely think that they're gonna vote in social democracy. Like they genuinely think that social democracy is gonna come in because they're gonna vote for it, right? Like that's how they think. Bread for all people. People with health make better choices, can stand taller. Yeah, well, food and shelter for everybody, dude. Like why is this a struggle at all? All right. Some parents are losing not one, but two children to drug overdoses as Canada's opioid crisis worsens. Like, no shit. Like, we're literally abandoning our kids. What do you think they're gonna do? Right? What do you think? Oh yeah, it's super Western and Eurocentric, dude. For sure. For sure. Like, for real, like one of the videos, like today's video... I got it uploaded a little late, so I'm sure most of you haven't seen it. But today's video was about, like, the stupid, xenophobic propaganda that a place like BreadTube just jerks off about. Like Mao's Great Leap, the famine that happened during Mao's Great Leap Forward, right? There's literally no evidence this event occurred. Like, this is one of these things. Like, I was actually astounded by this, right? Because... I've been skeptical of Western propaganda for a long time, but I had generally accepted the 100 million people dead in China thing. And then over COVID, it was the National the National Post did the like capitalist manifesto, which was such trash, like literal like white supremacist garbage. But within it, they had that claim that Mao killed 100 million people, and like it rang in my ear so badly that I was just like, let's look into that. And so I just like asked around some of the usual subreddits and stuff, and it turns out, no, this event did not occur, right? There was not 100 million people that died in China, and the more you think about it, the stupider it gets. Like, what? Oh, so 100 million people died in China. So that's a tenth of the population of China during that time, making it the greatest natural disaster that has occurred. Like, literally, you've got to look at the plague in order to find similar numbers of decline, right? And where do they get that number, right? So here's what happened, right? So after, this supposed famine occurs in like the late 50s, early 60s, right? So in the early 80s, a couple of statisticians are looking through China's data, right? And they purposefully misread and misinterpret the data in order to say, oh, wow, there's 100 million people missing from this period to this period. And what did they say? They said, oh, that must mean there was a famine that occurred. And then they just created this absolutely childish narrative that, like, the narrative literally is the Chinese killed a bunch of sparrows. And then the fact that they killed those sparrows meant that the seeds weren't getting planted, and then this created a famine. Like, this is literally the narrative that they're putting in front of us and saying, take us seriously. We are serious people, right? And I'm literally looking at these guys being like, this is like huge buck-toothed, slanty-eyed, big giant black frame glasses racism. Like this is like the most racist shit. that you could possibly say of a people. That they created a famine that killed 1/10 of their population because they killed too many sparrows. Like, that's a yikes from me, bro. And these fucking bread tubers and sock dems and liberals are walking around being like, yeah, that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. Well, okay, so if there was a famine that happened in China during this period of time, can you show me a single international commentator on it? Like, you're talking about a famine that was so bad that it killed 1/10 of the population, right? Can you find a single politician, a single ambassador, a single diplomat, a single China watcher, a single person, journalist, anybody? Can you find a picture? Can you find a witness? Can you find a confession? Can you find a conversation about it in Chinese documents? Right? You can't. There's literally no evidence of it. It's a non-event that didn't occur. And we here in the West are still using this as a talking point for why communism fails when it didn't occur. Like, it's so fucking stupid. Like, you've got to be like the most xenophobic, racist, stupid moron to go along with this narrative anymore. Right? Yet where is the great Chinese famine migration? If you've got 100 million people dying, you for sure would have like at least 1 million people fleeing, right? Like, it absolutely would be the case. Good to see you pissed off, bud. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing well. John, there would be a change in different environmental conditions too. There's no studies on that. Yeah. Like they killed a bunch of birds, and those birds were like, literally the claim is that sparrows were the backbone of Chinese agriculture. Like, really think about how fucking stupid that sounds. Like, really think about how fucking stupid you sound when you say, like, yeah, they killed too many sparrows and that's what made the famine happen. Jesus fucking Christ. Okay, that seemed funnier in my head. Now I'm sitting here before a computer blushing. What did you say, bud? I missed it completely. What do we got? What do we got? Now I'm too hyped now. I'm too hyped now. What do we got? Keeps getting farther away. Rectal abacus. Hold on. Bread for all people first. Dude, did I miss it? It keeps... fuck it. Rectal abacus. I love it. Yeah, they're just pulling shit out of... Like, that's it. That's all it is. They're just fucking pulling shit out of their ass. And just, like, presenting it to us as if it's facts. And it's just unbelievable to me. Like, it's unfucking-believable to me that there's any place anywhere in the world where you can present such a ludicrous idea and everybody goes, exactly, correct. Oh, here you go, right? Content making it even worse. Yeah, okay. I'm happy to be corrected, right? What was the population of China in 1960? Content man. Dude. So it's even worse. Like, it's even fucking worse. It's a sixth. It's a sixth of the population that they're claiming. They're claiming that, like, 20% of the society. What's the percentage on this? Like, bro. Like, how, what? What percentage of people died during the plague? That's a range of 5% to 40% of the world's population. Right? So, like, John, you can also look at China age demographic chart. It'll also provide proof too. Like, proof of what? for that year? Oh yeah, yeah. Like, nah, like, and what these statisticians didn't account for is that during that period of time there are major migrations happening, right? Mao's Great Leap Forward was a huge, like, military style restructuring of the society, right? Like, it was this enormous military style, right? Because the whole country was going through this enormous upheaval, right? Mao was a military leader. He was leading the country through a period of war, right? Like, very much akin as like World War II, right? And the populace was there for it, right? They were down. They understood what was happening, right? They were ready to go, right? And so when Mao stood up and was like, we're going to do this big push towards industrialization, this is what we're going to do and all this, the Chinese people were like, let's go, Brandon. They like picked it all up and they just fucking went to town. And of course that's going to create like data that has a skewing effect. But if you don't account for it, right? If you don't account for the reality that like, oh, like 100,000 people picked up all their shit in Shanghai and moved to Xinjiang or wherever. Right? Like, and I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm just as an example, right? Like, you're gonna see a shift in demographics. Like, you're gonna see like big population migrations and movements that definitely happened during that period of time. But if you just ignore that, you can just say, oh, well, that means that there was the famine that killed all the underprivileged people. 100 million people died because of a famine. It must have happened. Absolutely. No, there's no evidence or facts. No, we don't have anybody talking about it, but that definitely was the thing that happened. Like, this is Nazi level propaganda. Like, this is Nazi level propaganda. Yeah, do you know what China's pop would look like today? Way different, dude. Yeah. And then, like, why go through the one-child policy? Like, why even have the one-child policy? 100 million people died. A full sixth of your population died. Right? Also, my favorite, right? If we go back, like, where's the dip? Like, for real, like, this is your dip, I guess. Like, no, if you lose like, you're gonna see a line that goes, like, it's gonna be huge, right? You're not gonna see a line that's like, it's not how it's gonna work. I'm skeptical of stories of famines in China from cultures responsible for the famines in India, Ireland, now Yemen. Afghanistan. There's an ongoing famine in Afghanistan now that the United States is perpetuating. They have to go independent sources to even hear about. Yeah, exactly, dude. No, like that. Like, why are they talking about it? Why are they telling us about it? Like, it does suck that we're in this position now, where like, if the media says something, we immediately have to ask ourselves, why are they telling us about it? And it's just bad. It just sucks that like. Then you go onto like this bread tube thing and people are like, Firestone Tire Company in Liberia? Like, just shouting it. What's the story here, Famita? What's the story? All right, I do want to talk about this because I actually think that this is like super important. Like, it is. This should be telling us something about our population and our society more than anything else, right? Some parents are losing not one but two children to overdoses as Canada's opioid crisis. Okay, you know what I'm going to do, Famita? You're typing in all caps, so I gotta believe that this is real. All right, we're gonna look at that in a minute, a little bit later. I assume it's terrible. Like, I assume the Firestone Tire Company in Liberia is doing shitty things, right? That's the assumption. Great Leap Forward happened in the early 50s. Cultural Revolution happened in the 60s. Yeah. Some parents are losing not one, but two children to drug overdoses. Most of us have a hard time conceiving what it must be like to have a child die from a drug overdose, but two children? A growing number of parents are going through this unfathomable experience. Though experts can't point to any figures or studies on the phenomenon, they say that it is no longer rare. It's happening more than you would think, said Leslie McBain, one of the founders of the advocacy group Mums Stop the Harm, whose only child, Jordan Miller, succumbed to an overdose at the age of 25. The double deaths underline the awful toll that is being taken by Canada's other epidemic. 6 years after the worst hit province, British Columbia, declared the opioid crisis a public health emergency, drug overdoses are killing more people than ever. BC alone had more than 2,200 illicit drug deaths in 2021, making it the worst year yet. The average number of deaths a month in that province more than doubled after the pandemic restrictions kicked in 2 years ago. Authorities say that people who use drugs found it harder to visit peer groups and support services, leaving them more vulnerable to overdoses. The sheer scale of the crisis means that some families are suffering multiple losses, as they might in some mass catastrophe or armed conflict. These things normally only happen in wartime. You have 2 sons recruited for the army and they die, says Dr. Juran Reem, a senior scientist at Toronto's Centre for Addiction and Mental Health. He says that families and communities with high rates of poverty can be particularly vulnerable. So can families in Indigenous communities with a history of trauma or families with a history of addiction, in which several members or generations are affected. Sometimes drug use can spread among brothers or sisters. If one is using drugs, another might start. Genetics can play a role too. You can never get away from the eugenics conversation. Some people may inherit a vulnerability to addictive property of drugs, CAMH says on its website. It's bad enough when one kid dies, says Miss McBain of Mums Stop the Harm. When 2 kids die, how do you even survive that and put one foot in front of the other? Terry Carson's son, Chase Duncan, died of a drug overdose a week before Christmas, 2020. Chase grew up in the farm town of Stony Plain, Alberta, just west of Edmonton, one of a busy family of 9. He was a meticulous kid who kept his room tidy and carried his toys around in a special box to keep them safe from his brothers. The suicide of his brother Chad in 2011 affected him deeply. In his 20s, he became addicted to painkillers after getting beaten up in a bar fight, then graduated to street drugs. He died from a dose of fentanyl after coming late to the home he shared with his girlfriend and their daughter. Just 6 weeks later, still absorbing the loss, Miss Karen started to worry about another of her sons, Chase's brother, Colton. He too had struggled with drugs. Colton lost his hearing from meningitis when he was an infant and learned to manage with cochlear implants and lip reading. He was a tinkerer growing up, always looking for something to fix. He and Chase were close. They worked together in the shop at their father's trucking business and went motorbiking or watched movies in their spare time. Colton doted on Chase's daughter, taking her tobogganing and buying her a dollhouse. Chase's death threw him into the deep end, says Mrs. Karen. So, on a Saturday morning last winter, she asked her husband and her youngest son to look in on him. They found him dead in his apartment, another victim of fentanyl. Now, says Miss Karen, I just get up every day and I try my best. With 2 surviving sons, grandchildren, and other family to look after, you can't quit. Still, you always wonder if you were to blame or if it's something you did. Every single day, it's the first thing you deal with, that your life has changed altogether. Helen Jennings of Kelowna, BC, bore 2 sons 18 months apart. Like, not to downplay these personal stories of tragedy, which is what they are, but like, where is the actual analysis? Right? Where's the actual analysis? Right? Like, these are terrible stories of loss, right? But like, we're just going to glaze past, though experts can't point to any figures or studies on the phenomenon. We're just gonna glaze past this, right? Like, this right here, in my view, is like the heart of the whole thing. Like, why aren't we studying this? Why aren't we asking people, hey, what's up? Why aren't we actually here you go. Here you go, Famita. Famita with the raw facts, bringing it forward. Articles. Where are we? That's that one. Oh my God! See, I wanted this to be more of an article dump, but it's impossible, right? People always want to comment. Okay, I'll tell you what, Famita, if you put that here, I'll read it. You studied it. Phenomenal, I should say. If you could put that paper right here, I'll read it. I love this. How Joe Biden and Democrats are helping Republicans convince the country that government and politics don't matter. This is something that's absolutely I've noticed for sure, and I've been listening more and more to, and lots of commentators that I listen to are saying it, that oh my God, what's happened to Bumble's niece? Hold on. I lost a niece to, oh my God. I have a stuffed blue crab on a shelf above my desk right now. She gave it to me for my birthday. Oh, Bumble. I'm sorry to hear that, bud. I am sorry to hear that, bud. It seems like it's everywhere now. Her name was Sarah, and I loved her. Oh my God, bud. Ah. Yeah, the closest that I have to something like this story in my own personal life is that my dad was prescripted fentanyl after he had a surgery, and he said that getting off of it was the worst experience he's ever had, and that if he had to choose between going through the surgery experience without the painkillers and going with it with the painkillers and then getting off the painkillers, he's going to choose the pain. That's how bad it was for him. Opiate deaths are very common in the Pittsburgh area. Yeah, I knew a family where both of their kids were imprisoned. I managed to get one of them a job at one of my clients, but he got fired, then OD'd. Yeah, absolutely brutal. The elephant in the room here is mental illness, and the addictions are just a form of self-medication. I mean, also, the whole thing's burning down. Like, I don't know why this never enters the discussion. Like, the whole fucking place is burning down, right? Like, if it's not difficult to see, right? Like, why would our kids want to contribute or even remain in a society that's actively structuring itself to collapse in this way, right? Like, it doesn't take, in my view, it doesn't take a genius to figure it out. Don't, did you put it in the general maybe? Yeah, you did. That's okay. And the fact that we're not, thanks for sitting Shiv with me, John. I needed that. It was 3 years ago, but I guess there's still some tears in there. Solidarity, thanks. Hey, bud. No, that's, you know what, man, Bumble? One of the things I learned in funeral services is you never get over it. That there is sort of this idea that persists in our society of like, oh, well, can't they just get over it, right? They've got to move on, right? That kind of thing. And it just is never true. It's never the case, right? That the best that we do as these humans that we are is that we just learn to accept it. That we learn to accept that the world now exists without that person in it. And I learned that funerals don't exist for the benefit of the dead. They exist for the benefit of the living, so that the living can come to terms with what it is to live in a world without that person anymore. And that's why I'm a big believer in wakes. I think that I would like to have a wake for myself, because I think it's important that people sit with the dead, sit with and learn to accept that and learn to transition and use it. Wakes are a good way to transition through that period. But you never really do get over it. Never really. You just learn to accept that it's real. And I don't really respect that idea that people get over things and that, like, you're going to be 15, 20, 30 years on, and the subject's going to come up and the tears will come because you won't ever get over it. And that's okay. That's okay. It's okay to live like that, and it's okay to be like that. You know, I think about this, and I don't really go into it that often, but like, we really are just temporary refugees here. Like, we didn't really ask to be here. We don't know what we're doing here. We don't know anything about anything. That we're just randomly generated in as a byproduct of a deep biological insistence that we reproduce in the society and reproduce in the world. And the rules state that we're only here for a short period of time. And so I think that there are many of us who come to terms with that reality, even if we lack the capacity to articulate it. That one of the things I've learned about my role in all of this is that I think that a lot of people do think the way that I speak, but don't necessarily have the ability to articulate it. Don't necessarily, like, they know it in their heart and they know it in their gut and they don't know how to articulate it. And so I think there's lots of people who come to the reality that we're temporarily here in the first place, and this place has become somewhat unbearable. And so I'm just going to move on. That's what I really think of a lot of these people, a lot of these overdose people and a lot of this kind of stuff. I think that they intrinsically come to terms with their mortality and say it's time to move on. And in a sense, I do think to myself, like, it's most likely the most angelic of us who choose this path. Who, if you were a spirit that lived in heaven, and then you spawn here, and you see that it's not getting better, you might make the very clear-minded and clear-headed decision to simply move on. Even if you lack the capacity to articulate that that's the case. That's the heavy stuff right there. That's the heavy stuff right there. But that's what we're all here to do. To experience humanity. To experience this life. And so, with that in our heart, we've got another good article here from Famita. Steadily, Famita, I'm going to end up reading every single thing you've ever written on this channel, I think. Who needs needles? Drug users do. Hold on a second, guys. My dog is having an experience here. Are you okay, buddy? Are you okay? Are you okay? You okay, buddy? Some in your ear? Let me take a look. Sorry, guys. Just Milo's having a crisis. You okay, buddy? You okay? You good? You good? He's a good boy, buddy. Okay. Crisis averted. The opioid epidemic has been plaguing the world for decades. Marginalized people are those most affected by it, and they are often pushed to the fringes of society as a result of the stigmatization and criminalization of drug use and death. Many countries have adopted various measures in response to the epidemic as an attempt to negate the mortality rates of illicit substance and injection drug users. One response that has been growing in popularity as a result of its evident efficacy is harm reduction. Harm reduction is a social determinant of health approach to substance use that focuses on preventative medicine and health promotion through utilizing practical methodologies aimed at reducing the negative health outcomes that are associated with injection drug use of opioids and other harmful substances. Its foundation is formed around trauma-informed care practice and rejects abstinence-only approaches to addiction. What makes harm reduction sociologically relevant is that rather than focusing on the individual and pushing abstinence as a method for combating addiction, harm reduction tries to reduce the harm that arises from injection drug use and opioid consumption while respecting the lived experiences and choices of an individual. It does this through providing 1. Safe injection and consumption sites, 2. Needle exchange programs, 3. Opioid substitution, such as methadone, programs, 4. Education and outreach initiatives to marginalized communities, and 5. Naloxone administration and training. In addition, its sociological significance and why it is different from abstinence-only and legal responses to drug use is made clear by it being synonymous with a social justice movement, and its mechanisms focus on promoting and maintaining the well-being and inviolable human rights of people who use drugs. The most popular response to the opioid epidemic in Ontario to this day is criminalization. Drug possession, distribution, and overdose are still primarily handled by law enforcement. The author asserts that laying manslaughter charges against drug dealers for allegedly selling fatal doses of fentanyl is harmful and ineffectual. Evidenced by research conducted by the University of Toronto in 2014, the erroneous responses by law enforcement show no signs of impeding on the opioid epidemic, as a crime is not deterred generally by harsher sentences. In contrast, based on extensive research conducted globally, harm reduction strategies such as legalization, opioid substitution or prescription, and supervised injection have proven their effectiveness in places like Portugal and Switzerland. The author argues that the predominant way in which the opioid epidemic is being handled is grossly ineffectual, as it criminalizes those who are affected most by the epidemic, while dismissing the systemic variables and key actors that have directly produced the opioid epidemic in Canada. The act of assigning criminal responsibility to those who use, die from, and distribute illicit substances points to how effectively administer comprehensive penalization of such acts. For example, a 1993 Supreme Court ruling ambiguously established the notion that objective foreseeability of the risk of bodily harm, which is neither trivial nor transitory in the context of dangerous act, is adequate for penalization. Yet this does not account for the many intersecting variables and ramifications of such rulings, as argued by the author. This ruling upheld a case in which a conviction was made for an individual who, with the consent of the deceased, administered a fatal cocaine injection, which raises the question of whether this ruling can be applied to manufacturers or importers of fentanyl's precursor chemicals, or for doctors who willingly and easily overprescribe opioids to their patients. Here, the author argues that we must pay close attention to who is being criminalized by law enforcement and who is allowed to remain as key players in the opioid epidemic. If we are to criminalize drug distributors and users, then we should definitely criminalize those who make it easier for drugs to be made, and those who are key players in the creation of the opioid epidemic in Canada, i.e. the importers of fentanyl's precursor chemicals and doctors who overprescribe opioids. Criminalizing substance users might seem alluring to most, but it is hardly effectual and leaves out many of the forces that are active in maintaining the severity of the epidemic. Since ongoing initiatives made by law enforcement continue to target those most affected by the opioid epidemic, rather than those who created and maintained it, harm reduction initiatives are indisputably the only viable response to the opioid epidemic. Criminalizing those who use, die from, and distribute drugs has been proven as a grossly ineffectual response to the opioid epidemic. Harm reduction, on the other hand, is evidenced by extensive research as being the most effective method for combating the opioid epidemic, as argued by the author. These claims by the author are supported by Goldenberg et al. In their article, Police-Related Barriers to Harm Reduction Linked to Non-Fatal Overdose Among Sex Workers Who Use Drugs, Results of a Community-Based Cohort in Metro Vancouver, Canada. The assertions made by the author of the editorial are proven through the research conducted by Goldenberg et al., as it delineates how the experience of police-related barriers to harm reduction initiatives increases the probability of clients experiencing harm when using or accessing harm reduction services. The most notable results from their study indicated that amongst 624 participants, 68.6% of respondents reported police-related barriers to harm reduction strategies during the study. Additionally, experiencing police-related barriers to harm reduction strategies was associated with increased odds of non-fatal overdoses. In the 624 participants they interviewed, demonstrating the harm that police presence and police-created barriers begets for marginalized service users, common reported barriers that Goldenberg et al. Found in their research were difficulties accessing drugs, being rushed when inhaling or injecting drugs, confiscation of clients' used or new equipment from harm reduction sites by police officers, being harassed and searched by police officers, and police officers preventing clients accessing sterile equipment from harm reduction sites. To put it simply, Goldenberg et al. Provides us with observable evidence as to why criminalization and police interventions in harm reduction sites are grossly ineffectual. That is, the results produced by Goldenberg et al. Suggest that even within harm reduction and overdose prevention sites, inequities related to policing and the impact they have on the agency of clients accessing services continue to limit the accessibility and efficacy of harm reduction sites. Not only does the act of criminalizing those who use, die from, and distribute drugs beget increased harm for the marginalized communities police officers target, but the presence of police near or at harm reduction sites also decreases the efficacy of harm reduction initiatives. The author of the editorial in Goldenberg et al. Stressed the importance of removing all police presence near and in harm reduction sites in order to improve the efficacy of harm reduction while reducing the mortality rates of drug users, as the results indicate that continued exposure will have dire effects on the health and well-being of the populations most affected by the opioid epidemic. The authors of both articles agree that the resulting effects of police involvement and the overwhelming evidence delineating the efficacy of harm reduction initiatives make it clear that Ontario is in need of dire, system-level reformations for which we can create better responses to the opioid epidemic that will reduce the death toll of opioid users rather than reducing the number of users and distributors in the general population. The sociological relevance to the author's argument in the editorial, again, is made evident through the results discussed in the article by Goldenberg et al., as they provide tangible evidence of the harm criminalization of substance use begets, while stressing the importance of harm reduction initiatives in response to the opioid epidemic. Those who are affected most by criminalization of drug use, death, and distribution are marginalized people, for example, sex workers in Vancouver, while those who continue to benefit from it are the corporations who import the precursor chemicals to make fentanyl, and the doctors who continually prescribe opioids to people who may benefit from other therapies. The perspectives used in both articles is akin to a social detriments of health lens, as both authors delineate the importance of harm reduction initiatives as a response to the opioid epidemic. That is, both authors agree that preventative medicines and health promotion, which harm reduction functions as, has been proven to be effective in both Canada and globally. I personally find the arguments made by both authors to be accurate and verifiable, as the evidence points to harm reduction being as such. Moreover, as a frontline harm reduction worker who engages with marginalized communities, who access harm reduction and overdose prevention services, and police officers who attempt to involve themselves at the facility, I agree with the arguments made by both authors. My personal experiences working in this highly stigmatized field indicates that the assertions and evidence provided by both authors is factual, and that we are in dire need of real system-level reformation for how we address those who use, die from, and distribute illicit substances. Yeah. Yeah. Once again, Famita, just laying it out. Just laying it out. Like, criminalization of this stuff has been a huge problem, right? A huge problem. Like, you can't seek help if you're going to end up in a jail cell, right? Like, you can't seek any assistance, right? And if we don't acknowledge that, like, this is a health crisis for sure, and in my view, like, one of the primary drivers of this kind of thing is that we're not really addressing core issues in our society. That, of course, people are going to turn to drugs and turn to that kind of thing if they're incapable of, feeling anything but rage and sadness in the society that exists. Like, there's the famous study that was given about you put a rat in a cage, right? And then you put a water bottle and a bottle of heroin, right? And this was the experiment that they used to justify the idea that when a rat is given a choice between drugs and water, it'll take the drugs, and so it's got to be a chemical addiction, right? That was always the argument. But then future research took this rat experiment and they postulated that, like, okay, but what you're doing is isolating a rat. Like, what you're doing is taking a creature that is a social creature and you're isolating it and saying the only thing that you have to do, the only interaction that you're allowed to have is drugs, is heroin, right? And so they ran the study again, but then, and again, the rat starts doing heroin, right? Starts taking the drug. Right, but then they take the rat and they put the rat in a rat pen where there's a bunch of rats in, like, rat paradise. They create like a rat paradise, and the rat who is hooked on the drug stops using the drug because it's reintegrated back into the rat population. And then they started running studies, like they take the heroin drug and they put the water in the drug, right? And some rats come up to the drug and they try it. Right? They trip out, they have an experience, right? But they've got other shit to do, right? They're in a community, they're living with these other rats and stuff. And very steadily, like after basically every rat has the try, right? They abandon it because they're like, yeah, I mean, that's a trip, I guess, but I'm not going to burn my life out on it. And so the conclusion that I come to is if what you've done is isolated people, right? If what you've done is created a society that isolates people, that creates terrible conditions for them, where the only thing they have that gives them any pleasure or joy whatsoever is this drug that they've found, then we're going to experience this stuff, right? And to me, the solution, certainly this is correct in terms of people who are using drugs to the degree that we're talking about, all of the solutions talked about in Famita's article there. But, like, we've got to make this place nice. Like, we've got to make this place nice. We've got to give people a buy-in, right? Like, we've got to create a society that's worth living in for these people, right? That, like, we're creating a society that's just leading people to total despair. That there's nothing here for us. Truly, there's nothing here for us. Like, we can't build a spiritual society and a society that's full of hope for the future on like Netflix shows. Like that's not how it's going to work. Like we seriously need to rethink what is the goal of our society and our civilization. Like what's the point of all of this? And if the point of all of this is to just grind your life away so that Jeff Bezos can shoot rockets into space, well, lots of people are going to find the door, right? And I don't blame them for it. I don't. Like there are lots of people, like suicide for a long time has been seen as like this terrible thing and sinful, right? It's been illegal and all of this kind of stuff in our history and so on and so forth. And I look at it and I say, what are you talking about? Like, this place isn't that nice. Like, it's not that great. You know? Like, we could do a lot better than this. Quickly, too. Like, that's something that I think about all the time. Like, we could do a lot better than this. Quickly. It would happen very fast. Like, in the space of 5 years. Like, give people a buy-in. Give people the sense that there is a growing, thriving community, that there's something worth pursuing. Give people the freedom to pursue their own initiatives, right? Rather than telling them to grind their life away for a capitalist who literally will abandon them the second it's profitable for them. Like we've created this insane society. It's manic. Like it's manic and it's gone hysterical. And we're willing to report on these opioid crises from a base humanistic point. Like this article reports on this, just like a basic, like it's just telling you the stories of the human impact. But it's not actually presenting anything like maybe we could do better. Right? I'm very fatigued. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, Famita. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's psychic damage, right? And that's why I'm here, right? I'm here to create a solidarity movement. I'm here so people can come and we can have a genuine human conversation about what's happening in the world. Right? It's why I can't stand the debate bros. I'm so over it. Like and just yesterday I was talking about like being like one of these debate bros, and I'm just like I'm just not interested in it because it's so dehumanizing. Right? It's like taking the human experience and trying to turn it into a game of chess, and it's just not what we're doing here. Right? And it's kind of embarrassing actually. Like it's embarrassing to take people's lived human experience and treat it as if it's something that you can put on the table to dominate a debate opponent. I'm just so disinterested in it, and I would much prefer to have conversations with Bumble Guppy, to have these shared experiences of grief with one another, and to talk about this from a very human position, like we're willing to acknowledge the tragedy, but we're refusing to do anything about it. That's the real truth of it. And why? Right? Because our owners don't care. Right? Our owners don't care at all. It doesn't matter to them. Right? Like in fact, the opioid crisis, like who's perpetuating it? Like who do you think? Follow the money on this one. Who's actually making it? Who's manufacturing it? Who's selling it? Who's the beneficiary? Right? And so it's like they've created a society that isn't worth living in, and so a bunch of people turn to drugs, and the ownership class says, oh, if you're going to turn to drugs, then we're going to sell them to you. Right? And it doesn't matter to them. Is that actual birds I hear in your background? Yeah, I got my window open here, and there's a tree just right outside my door here. Like the graveyard I walk around in is like right there. Like I actually like that. A big reason why I don't want to move from this space, even though I feel like I'm going to have to. And I'm really going to push it. I'm going to try really hard to not leave this spot. Is that like the graveyard's right there. right? The beach is just like a 10-minute walk away from me. So like when the weather gets nice, I'm gonna like walk down to the beach, and like it's so funny, dude. Like sometimes I'm like writing to these bread tubers, and they love saying go outside and touch grass, and I just say to them like watch any of my videos, dude. Like watch any of my videos. Like shut up about that. Like your childish nonsense. Like oh good for you, you found a slogan. Like grow up. Unbelievable. Yeah, that's why I chose not to apply for grad school. I just remembered having a depressing paper about Ebola for another day. Oh yeah. Hey Barnabas, how you doing, bud? And the you got it, dude. You got it. You picked the right number. It was an 8 today. I'm going to assume that this is honest, Barnabas. Good for you, bud. You did it. The yeah, I mean, I chose not to continue on with the academic system because I just didn't think the academic system was that interested in the truth. That it wasn't really pursuing, like, it was really propping up like nonsense in my view. And I just kind of came to understand that if I was going to attempt to integrate myself into the academic system, I was going to have to concede something I wasn't really willing to concede, right? That and I just don't see the academic institutions in Canada as genuinely interested in pursuing a path of truth. That like if I was to do what I do on this channel in academic circles, I would simply not succeed, right? And you take a look at what like high school teachers have to put up with, or you take a look at what like teachers have to put up with. And I just looked at it and was just like, I'm not willing to perpetuate this. Like I'm not willing to just put myself in a system of compliance and obedience, which is how I view the education system. Like the only thing you're vetting for is whether or not the student complies. Do they say yes? Right? And like to a degree, it's like, okay, but when they say yes, can they do the task that has been set to them? Right? So you are trying to vet out for competence, but the primary competency is their obedience. Right? That's the primary competency. And I just realized like I'm just never going to be able to do that. Like I really do think I would get into the school system and I would be like a teacher and I would encounter a kid that would say, this is bullshit, I'm not going to do it. And my response to them would be like, yeah, I fucking completely agree with you, bud. Like this is bullshit. Why should anybody do this? Like this is so stupid. It's so stupid that I have to administer it. It's so stupid that I have to grade it. It's so stupid that we're doing this. Like this whole fucking you sit in a chair, right? And then I regurgitate some bullshit that I've been told to regurgitate to you. I'm going to teach you what Thomas Hardy's Test of the Duberville for the 15,000th time, right? While you just kind of ask me like, what's the point of this? And my response will be like, yeah, good fucking point. What is the point of this? Right? Like, why are we learning this? Maybe we should do a critical analysis of the structure of the school. Oh, I've been fired? Oh, okay. Like, that's exactly what would happen, and I know it's the case. Right? Like, I would never, ever teach kids to comply, ever. And, like, but that's the system. That's the structure of it. And if you're not willing to comply, right, if you're not willing to be obedient, if you're not willing to, like, bow your head and just go, yes, sir, well, then you don't get hired. You walk out the door, right? Like, it's pretty clear to me that that's the case. People who think change takes time are wrong. I mean, I agree with you completely, right? Like, we just need to come into a room and basically say to one another, like, this is how we're going to do it, and that's it. Like, and change only takes time because people dig their heels in, right? Even if we decriminalize drugs, at least it would take the criminality of addiction out of the equation and make it a public health issue, which it is. Yeah, that's exactly right, dude. Well, and every country that's done it, like there was, I think it was Portugal, if I'm not mistaken, Portugal, which is right. Portugal was having like major, like when we call what we're experiencing an epidemic, like imagine all of those stories, except they're happening in your like public parks. Like they're happening in big serious ways. I think it's Portugal that we're talking about. Could be the Netherlands though. Could be these guys. And anyway, I'm gonna move forward as if it's Portugal. And these guys were having like major like people ODing in children's parks, like outside of elementary schools, shit like this, like major dysfunction. And their solution was decriminalization. They just decriminalized all the drugs. They said, we're not going to tolerate this. Like, nope. If you seek help, then no cop is going to arrest you. Nothing's going to happen like that. If you do interact with the cops are basically just going to take you to the facilities, the health facilities, to assist you, right? And it cleared the problem up in serious ways, right? Obviously it doesn't solve the problem. Like the problem is much deeper than that, because like this is what I was talking about earlier, right? I view the problem as a community problem, that our country sucks. Like it just sucks to be here, right? Like you go outside and it's just cars zipping by you as fast as possible to get to jobs that everybody hates. So everybody's exhausted all the time and angry and grumpy, right? You go out to try to enjoy yourself, and it's all just shitty bars, and like everything is like as stupid as it possibly can be. And if you can afford to go to the place that's actually nice, it's just pretentious and annoying. Like that's been my entire experience of this place. Like I know I sound like I'm fucking one of these like cynical, like, oh, he just hates everything. But like for real, like we don't have a culture. Like our culture is basically hockey and getting excited about like trying a different type of like beef or something. Like it's so fucking dumb. Like, and we're not, and moreover, we're not actually interested in building a culture. I think that's the most damning part about Western society, is that not only do we not have a culture, right? Not only do we not have like a real community of any sort, we're completely disinterested in building something like that. And so, like, what do you think? Like, what do you think is the primary driver, right, of drug addiction and drug use, right? You've created the shittiest possible version of what a society should be, right? Which is essentially just like a parking lot, so people can drive through to get to McDonald's or whatever, right? Like, people are fucking bored, and the place is stupid. And if you want to actually enjoy yourself, then you've got to be like a fucking millionaire, right? And even then, you're living this like stupid, miserable, pointless existence. Like we have forgotten what we actually want, because we fell for this stupid idea that true contentment and true satisfaction with life can be bought by getting products, right? And it's just not what it is. It's just like not what life's about, and like not what like people care about, really and truly. Like I keep thinking about like making like a short film called "I'd Like to Speak to the Manager," right? That would be the title of it. And it would follow a Karen, like a true Karen with like the real hair, right? Like, you know what I'm talking about, with the spikes and all. And she would buy this object, right? And it would be stupid. It would be the stupidest object. And you got to imagine this like a Pixar kind of animated film, where she'd have the like stupid bauble that's supposed to, and she's been promised that it's going to, it'll finally make you happy, right? And she'll interact with it, and maybe she'll giggle once or twice, and then it loses its luster, right? As all of this garbage does. And then she'll start complaining to a customer service agent or something, right? And ultimately she'll say, I'd like to speak to the manager, please. This doesn't make me happy, right? And she'll keep ascending, right? So she'll talk to the manager, and then she'll talk to the owner, and then she'll talk to the politician, and then she'll talk to the next level of politician, and then she'll be talking to the president of the United States, and then she'll be talking to God himself, right? And it'll just keep ascending, until finally she comes to the realization that true happiness, right, can't be bought and expressed through a bauble or an item, and that it's actually improving someone else's life that actually brings about the truth of happiness, right? And she'll express this by taking this dumb bauble and giving it away, right? And seeing that it's making someone else happy, and that will make her happy. And then she'll move on from that experience, attempting to make other people's lives easier and better, because that's the true root of happiness, right? Is not actually seeking a selfish version of self-gratification, but ameliorating other people's genuine suffering. And we don't believe that as a people. We've definitely forgotten that ameliorating people's genuine suffering is something that we despise, in fact, right? The whole get a job culture, the whole individualism, all of that kind of stuff, it runs completely counter to it, right? Don't seek to ameliorate others' suffering, right? Seek to ameliorate your own suffering. And how do we often seek to ameliorate our own suffering? Buy shit. Just buy something. That'll do it, right? It's just not how it works. So of course people turn to drugs. Of course they do. I can't imagine what other outcome you would expect. If life was about going with friends to the local rose garden, pruning a 220-meter Joseph's coat, and then going downtown to participate in the world record bowl of coleslaw and dance, no drugs needed. Bumble guppy. Just nailing it. That's exactly what I'm talking about, dude. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, if life was even just pleasant, right? If life was just about going with your friends and doing calm, beautiful things, right? Like, or versions of it. Yeah. And even if there were drugs involved, right? That certainly it wouldn't be like fentanyl level overdose drugs, right? Like, be the lighter, more participatory sort. But like, I think about alcohol. Alcohol's a good one, right? Like, I have come to understand. You guys know me, right? I got the chakra thing going on there. I don't know how well you can see the chakras back there. Here, hold on. Reasonably well. Got the chakra thing back here. You guys know me, right? It's a visualization aid, right? Well, alcohol exists to deaden the mind. That's why we do it. Because this is going too much. Like, this is constantly in this perpetual state of just ongoing, just, and so we do drugs in the hope, or alcohol rather, in the hope that this will cease. This needs to stop. We intentionally make ourselves stupid. That's why we like alcohol, because it makes us stupid on purpose. It brings our intellect back into line with the rest of the body. And like, this is how you end up with people who get blackout drunk, right? How can a person be blackout drunk but still functioning, right? If they literally don't remember, if their brain has shut off, how are they still operating in the world? Well, we've seen it. We know exactly what's going on, right? And it's because fundamentally, you don't actually need your brain to do any of that. Your body is fine just by itself. That's the truth of it. Time is a colonist construct. I mean, certainly the measuring of it, right? Certainly the clock, right? Tick tock, tick tock. Time is a great tune by Pink Floyd. You got it. You could substitute colonization with capitalism. The same would be true. Deaths by drug overdoses is looked upon by the bourgeoisie as a way of indirectly culling the surplus population. Yeah, spitting straight facts. Absolutely. It was Portugal. Thank you, Watson. I appreciate that. Because I'm pretty sure there was a similar story that happened up in the Netherlands, but I think the big one was Portugal. Choosing a dishonest date. That's between him and David Lynch. Time to weld steel, John. Oh, dude. I feel like if I like I always want I've always wanted to buy swords, but I know exactly what would happen. I would just buy all the swords. A wizard is never early or late, but arrives precisely when he intends to. I grew up in a college and met professors with a child's eye, and they were snobby and cruel and so much better than me. I never aspired to a 4-year college town. So I never aspired to it. Yeah, I mean, like, the snobbiness of these professors is unbelievable. Like, they're most of them are not very smart, right? Like, they're just yes men. That's just it. Like, they're just yes men. And like, and many of them were very kind and nice and interesting and in their own right, right? But you'd occasionally meet these professors who just thought that they were king shit of Turd Island, and like fundamentally, I'm just like, you're not actually that smart. Like, you're not very interesting. Like, you're just a jerk. Capitalistic pedagogy is designed to create the perfect worker, for sure. Natasha Kinski was kind of hot in the movie Tess of the Dubervilles. Thank you, Watson. That's the analysis we need. Yeah, zero culture here in Canada, damn boxes. Like, what's our culture, right? Like, literally our entire culture is like, and like Schitt's Creek. Like, that's it. That's our entire fucking culture. Capitalism destroys culture because you can't make a profit off social solidarity. I also think that there's something about, like, corporations want to be sort of banal, and like every McDonald's you walk into is the same McDonald's, right? So there's a conformity here that everything is like the same every time. There's a familiarity. There's a word that I'm looking for that I'm just completely blanking on, but it is like this oneness, right? That every McDonald's you walk into is the same McDonald's. And so all corporations attempt to do this, right? So that when you walk into an A&W, it's the same A&W. But then ultimately, all of their models begin to realize or begin to discover that, like, okay, what we're doing is we're selling a product to a human. And the humans like this the most. We've done the studies, right? So when you eat a McDonald's burger, right, or an A&W burger, or any burger these days, right, it fits this like perfect recipe of like salt, fat, and sugar to hit the bliss point. This is from their literature, right? So that means when you eat a McDonald's burger or an A&W burger or a Burger King burger, there might be small variations, but they are fundamentally the same thing, right? And so too the same with when you walk into a Burger King or an A&W or a McDonald's, it's fundamentally the same experience, even though like the logo is just different, because the experience is being catered to a human. And it turns out that humans are actually very simple. We're fairly straightforward, right? And the goal is to ensure that the experience is non-offensive, right? So we can't do something interesting, strange, or fringy because it will be offensive to a small group of the society, right? But we want to sell burgers to those guys. So what we do is create this like homogenous sort of one banalness so that everybody can walk into a McDonald's and be non-offended, right? And this is what capitalism ultimately attempts to do to all of the culture, right? You see this, right, in the wokeness and all of this, right? And you see it in the assault against comedy, right? That comedy itself and comedians themselves have had to respond to this phenomenon. And what it is it's capitalism attempting to assert itself and create a banal oneness that is inoffensive to the majority of people, because if the system itself is inoffensive to the majority of people, then most people will willingly capitulate themselves to it, right? As long as it's banal and homogeneous, right? It's just what it is. But what that ultimately results in is a dead society, right? It's just like a Borg. It's just like a Borging of the society where everybody is like this banal sameness, and we've all just like turned into just dumb non-participants, right? that we're all supposed to just consume. So that just means that we're always viewing things, right? We're always looking at things, right? But we're never actually doing anything. We're not actually participating in meaningful ways. And again, this is why I don't want to be one of these fucking debate bros, right? Because the debate bros are just fundamentally like this. They're just consumers, right? That all they're doing is consuming shit to create like a feedback loop of consumer content that they then create, right? Whereas I'm sitting here being like, no, like I want to actually reach beyond that. I want to actually be the person that these guys talk about. That's my goal. Like, my goal is not to be one of these debate bro guys. My goal is to be one of the people that these debate bro guys talk about, right? Like, I'm trying to build a movement. I'm trying to get people into the streets. I'm trying to connect some dots. I'm trying to make it so that we can eventually, like, if we could regularly get even 20 people, right? Even 20 people to events, right? On a regular basis, it would fundamentally start to alter things. Because once you start to get like there's a critical mass, right? And I think that critical mass is actually 100 people. Like, once you can regularly get 100 people out, it gets much more difficult to ignore. And once you can regularly get 100 people out, it's not a big leap to get 200, because it's just literally everybody bring a friend, right? And then it starts to snowball, and before you know it, you have like 100,000 people in the streets. Like when the climate change protests happened here in Toronto right before the pandemic hit, and literally there was 100,000 people in the streets. The people who were organizing that protest were like, "What the fuck just happened?" They literally did not understand what was happening in front of them when it happened, right? Because they just had seized onto the energy at the right time, but no one ever talks about the like 10 years beforehand of just like trying a protest, another one. Only 10 people came. Okay, this time 100 people came. Okay, now only 3 people came. Okay, 50 people came this time. Okay, and like over and over and over again, they try and they try and they try and they try, and then suddenly there's 100,000 people in the streets. But you don't see the 10 years of them trying first, right? And that's something I feel like, and that's how we build a real culture in a society that's actively structured itself to destroy culture. Well, the only way to build a real culture is to fight against that, because it's just so boring and stupid, and everything's the same, and in my view, this is why like everything seems so incomprehensible now. There's a chaos to it. And that's because we're entering a Dadaist period, right? That would be my analysis of the quote-unquote culture or the counterculture that's starting to come up. That because everything has been rendered banal and homogeneous and the same, and like, just take a look at Hallmark movies, for God's sakes. It's like the same movie over and over and over again. Like the Marvel movies, it's the same movie every single time. Just like change the costumes, right? But it's the same fucking movie. It's the same formula, right? Everything, or like the remakes, right? Like the remakes of movies, or the sequelization of old IPs. Like, oh, we're gonna do Ghostbusters this time. Oh, it's gonna be this. It's gonna be that. So it's like a homogeneousness. You can't create anything new. You can't, because creating something new means that you need to step beyond your comfort zone, or you need to critique the society that you live in, or you need to do something that thwarts the expectation of the viewer. You need to challenge the viewer in a way. But if all you've ever done is be a yes man in a homogeneous society, then having your views challenged is an affront. Oh, what a devastating thing that you've done, right? And so the only way that the culture can respond to this kind of amorphous blob of sameness that is just constantly regurgitating itself and perpetuating itself like a fucking Borg, the only way to respond to it is with just nonsense, right? Just nonsense. Just Dadaist nonsense, right? And so everything that has caught my eye recently that I consider interesting at all, it fundamentally like exists from a place of absurdism, from a place that is just like constantly vomiting out nonsense. Because at least nonsense is different, right? At least nonsense is different than this sort of gross, like blobby beigeness, right? And also another real benefit of just absurdist style narratives and absurdist style art is that you don't need to defend yourself, right? If someone gets offended by it, you're literally like, yeah, it's just nonsense, dude. Like you're getting offended by garbage, right? And it doesn't create, like, you don't need to defend it. That's and in a society that wants to fucking lynch, like in a society where Will Smith walks up on the stage of the Oscars and literally slaps Chris Rock because he said the joke looking forward to G.I. Jane 2 about a bald wife, right? The softest possible joke that could ever be told about that situation, right? In a society that's generating those kinds of outcomes, right? That's so loser level sensitive about that kind of banal joke, right? Absurdism is the only response, right? You have to render everything absurd because it is absurd what we're doing. It's absurd in its boredom, and it's absurd in its stupidity. It's just absurd what we're tolerating and putting up with and what we get offended by. Like literally we are like committing genocides overseas and we don't give a shit. But oh man, Chris Rock made fun of a bald woman. Better smack him in the mouth. Right? Like, we're so fucking goddamn brutal. Wasn't it Gandhi where the reporter asks, what do you think of Western culture? And he replied, I think it would be a good idea. Yeah, something along those lines. Gandhi also said, I rather like Christ, but I don't care for the Christians. Hockey in the new Timbit, and you've seen. Have you seen the Beeb bits, or what, the Tim Biebs or whatever they're called? Like literally, Justin Bieber making an agreement with Timbits, and so now there's like Bieber bits. It's like garbage upon garbage. Hey, you can touch grass, but have you touched grace? Yes, yes, dude. Elden Ring humor. Elden Ring humor. John, have you listened to That Funny Feeling by Bo Burnham? I am familiar with Bo Burnham. If you haven't seen Bo Burnham's Inside, I really recommend it. He's really captured something. And Bo Burnham is like he's sort of the tip of the spear of this Dadaist absurdism that I'm talking about. That his work is still comprehensible. Like he's still somewhat rooted in the millennial ethos, right? But a Bo Burnham is going to show up from the Gen Z crowd, and that's just going to be great. That's just going to be nonsense. Like literally, like what are you even fucking talking about, bro? And we're going to love it because it's just going to be crazy and different and strange and weird and new, right? Yeah, helping others is effeminate and unmanly, exactly, right? Like you can't help that person. When I was growing up, dude, if I was walking down the street and someone got stuck in a snowbank, right? Literally everyone around me would be like, okay, well, we're going to push this guy out. And you would just push him out, right? And there'd be no conversation about it, no muss, no fuss. Or maybe the guy would give a honk or a wave on his way out. But, like, everyone understood. Like, if you're stuck in the snowbank, we're going to push you out. We can see it. There it is. You know, we've done it, right? I haven't been back to Manitoba in a long time. Is that the same? Is that the same now? But like, according to the conservative libertarian ethos, when you see somebody stuck in a snowbank like that, you should just leave them alone, right? Even though assisting them is really no skin off your back, right? The best way to find love is by sharing your own. It's like your love is a way of perceiving the world. Yeah, that's what a beautiful sentiment, bud. That is a beautiful sentiment. I hope I get a girlfriend soon, guys. I do. I hope that happens. It just seems like an enormous pain in the ass at this moment. And like, I'm not financially stable yet. That's the real truth of it. I just think that like no woman is gonna give a shit about like a middle-aged dude who doesn't have a job and isn't like it's just barely squeaking by. You know, like that's the harsh reality of it, and like it just seems like so exhausting and so daunting to even think about that kind of thing. That's just anyway. Anyway, that's getting a little too on the nose, but that's the truth of it. Jim Beam makes me purposefully stupid. Probably the worst advertising slogan ever. I don't know. I think he'd do all right. Would you like to be purposefully stupid? Jim Beam. Making people dumb since 1847. Or whatever. Reswords. I work with a pipe fitter who goes to these medieval melees. Yeah, he makes his own helmets. For sure, dude. For sure. Littlest hobo. Hey, Schitt's Creek is seriously funny, so are the Mackenzie brothers. No, I'm not trying to say they aren't, right? But that's it. Like, do we really want, like, the height of our culture to be Schitt's Creek and the Mackenzie brothers? Really? That's what we have to say? Don't red green, yeah, red green for sure. Red green's fallen away. He's not as important as he used to be. But for a long time, you're right, red green. He was the man. If your woman don't find you handsome, she can at least find you handy. Right? And sometimes they would do these like handyman stuff with what was his name, Bill or whatever, and they would use a bunch of duct tape to do a project, and every so often they would use the duct tape to do the project, and I'd be like, I bet that one would work. I bet that would work. It's why many fast food joints have red and yellow in their signage. It turns out those two colors in combination tends to make humans hungry. Interesting. I got to make sure that I expunge. I don't have any red and yellow. Does that make any sense? If I were to flow into color theory on that, because there's a lot of color theory within the chakra system. Red is the survival color, right? It's your base chakra, and yellow is your power chakra, and the orange, in fact, is your pleasure chakra, which is in between those two things, and is a mixture of that color. So it's like hitting you like in your base place, right? Yeah, by the way, I'm a KFC addict. Red also makes you angry, though. Yellow, happy. Green, calm. Well, green is the color of the heart. Is that why libs say communism means no food? Because of the red and yellow flag? Yeah, that's right. And we're just eating all the grain, causing famines wherever we go. That's it. Right? You got it. We got the red and yellow flag, and so we eat too much because we're hungry all the time, and it creates famines all over the place constantly. That's what it is. There's anti-aggression pink color. Oh man. I'm meat-free for the time being. That cut out a ton of fast food for me. Yeah, dude. Yeah. If you don't go for fast food, it does mean that you're essentially meat-free. Like, I try really hard to not have meat around me, but like, I'm weak. I'm a weak man. Yeah. Ghostbusters, this time an all-female cast, just like everybody wanted. Milo just horked up a loogie. That's how he is, dude. That's how he is. He's always doing this. But Bo Burnham is a genius, dude. He is. He really is. And he's always been that way. I've been following Bo Burnham since the early days of YouTube. Like, Bo Burnham started, and I've listened to him talk about it too, and he's just like, yeah, it's astounding. Like, my story is incredible. That, like, he literally made some stupid songs for his friends, right? And put them on YouTube, and then they exploded, right? Like, these songs blew the fuck up. And he was just like, oh, I guess there's something here. And he's like the youngest person to have ever been given, I think it's an HBO special, right? Or some kind of special. And literally, this is a kid who is just like, I'm just going to write a funny story about how much I'm a loser. Here's a funny story about how hard it is to get girls, right? This is a story about the existential crisis of man. It's hilarious, right? And like, he just is funny, right? Like, I think that's the thing about Bo Burnham. And one of the things that libertarians and people on the right really hate to consider is that although they do bring it up, they have such a perverse relationship with this concept of like, sometimes people are just randomly generated and they are what they are, right? That there is no like hard work and or you can't hard work your way into funny, right? Like you can't hard work your way into some things. Like I can't hard work my way as a man who is like of average height to be an NBA star. Like I just never gonna happen. I know, buddy. I know. Milo hates hard work. You say hard work, he just loses his mind. Little pug. He's a good boy. And Bo Burnham is just funny. Like he just is funny. I'm wearing red. There you go. Yeah, red is the survival color. I guess I feel like I need to survive. I, for one, disapprove of John's girlfriend as she takes times away from the live stream. No, she won't. That's why. A good woman will never hate a man as he does his work. No Zoom for me. I like throwing a rhetorical grenade into the chat, but I can't focus enough for Zoom. That's hilarious. When I gave up looking for love, I made room for love to enter my life. True story. Dude, that is some like homespun folksy shit right there. When I gave up looking for love and made room for love in my life. Like I feel like you just became Matthew McConaughey from like the 1990s. When I gave up looking for love and made room for love to enter my life. All right, all right, all right. I wrote a haiku about that, grinning. My love looks to life as a cherry tree in bloom and never doubting. Motherfuckers over here writing fucking haiku poetry. All right, let's do a rapid fire. I got a couple more. Polyev defends investment in rental properties while campaigning to address housing affordability. Yeah. Like, all of our politicians have rental properties. Why do you think they don't want to lower the rent? Right? Because they're directly benefiting from this in obvious ways. Like, they're part of the problem. It can't be more clear. Yeah, more than 50 billion tons of topsoil have eroded in the Midwest. Isn't that exciting? The estimate of annual loss is nearly double the rate of erosion in the USDA considers sustainable. Right? Right? Like, wonk on wonk, wonk wonk wonk. Yeah, Skippy, sticking up for his petty bourgeoisie masters yet again. Like, my favorite part about this erosion of topsoil that's existing, right? Here, this is actually quite a short article, so I'm just quickly gonna... Since farmers began tilling the land in the Midwest 160 years ago, 57.6 billion metric tons of topsoil have eroded, according to a study published recently in Earth's Future. The loss has occurred despite conservation efforts implemented in the 30s after the Dust Bowl, and the erosion rate is estimated to be double what the U.S. Department of Agriculture says is sustainable. Future crop production could be severely limited if it continues. Degraded soil makes growing food more difficult and expensive. Without healthy soil, farmers won't be able to grow nutrient-dense food to feed our growing population. The calculated loss in the region is part of a critical issue. Some experts suspect the Earth will run out of usable topsoil within 60 years. The team of researchers led by geoscientists at the University Massachusetts Amherst measured the elevation differences between native prairie and farm fields across Midwestern states to see how tilling has changed landscapes. Native prairie remnants are higher than surrounding land, the study explains. The majority of the 20 investigated sites were located in central Iowa, but other places were studied in Illinois, South Dakota, Minnesota, Kansas, and Nebraska, reports Katie Pikes for Harvest Public Media. These rare prairie remnants that are scattered across the Midwest are sort of a preservation of the pre-European American settlement land surface, says Isaac Larson, study author from the University of Massachusetts Amherst. The research team had help from the Iowa Natural Heritage Foundation to identify sites for the study. On average, farmed fields were 1.2 feet below the prairie, per Science News. After measuring soil height in each area, the team found that on average, topsoil is eroding at a rate of 1.9 millimeters per year. When topsoil erodes, the nutrients crops needs go with it, making it more difficult for soil to store water, support plant growth. Farmers can lose 50 to 70% of their yield potential because of the loss of topsoil. Rapid erosion is a problem because recovering topsoil is a slow process that takes years. Generating just over an inch of topsoil takes 1,000 years, says Maria Helena Semedo of the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization in 2014. Topsoil can erode due to strong winds, hard rains, flowing water. Farming practices like tilling, the process farmers use to overturn the ground to prepare it for crops, leave the soil vulnerable to surface runoff. One way to help mitigate the loss of topsoil is that farmers use no-till practices to grow crops. By and large, we have the technology now to make no-till work, or something that approximates it, maybe strip-till. Richard Cruz, an agronomy expert at Iowa State University, not involved with the study, says. So it's realistic. It's more challenging with some soils than other. According to the USDA, no-till practices have already been implemented by 51% of soybean, cotton, corn, and wheat farmers in the U.S. Cover crops may also be a solution. They are plants grown during the off-season, but are only used in about 5% of cases. Bruno Basso, an agricultural researcher at Michigan State University, not involved with the study. As erosion degrades our soil, it reduces our ability to grow food. Combine this with increasing global population and climate stress, and we have a real problem. Yeah, we got a real fucking problem. My favorite part about this is that we throw away about 50% of our food. So we're like literally growing all of this food, right? We're just like, food! And we're like literally, like, ah! Right? As much as we possibly can squeeze out of this thing, right? And in so doing, we're like destroying the Earth's capacity to grow food, right? So that we can literally take most of it and just throw it in a garbage bin. Not distribute it into the populace, not actually give people access to it, right? Not send it to poorer countries, not literally anything that makes any fucking sense at all. Nope. The thing to do is to just grow as much as you can, bin it, and then once the whole thing collapses, just shrug and be like, free market, I guess. Literally rock bottom, dude. Bumble. That's the funniest thing ever, dude. That's so funny. Dust Bowl is back, baby. Yeah. Bedrock Bowl. Sounds like a college football game. That sounds like something from the Flintstones. I think that might actually be something from the Flintstones, the Bedrock Bowl, right? And they're like throwing a rock, right? That's what it'd be. Not everything is sports, you nerd. Sports is life. Bad for your brain compartments, your brain departments. It reduces our ability to grow food. Like, they got to explain it. They do got to explain it, though. Oh, it reduces our ability to grow food. Oh, riddle me this. Bamboozle me this. Wages need big-time catch-up in Canada as inflation rages from the BMO, right? So you know how fucked you are when the chief economist of BMO Capital Markets is like, we probably should raise wages. Either inflation will need to moderate and soon, or else wages are poised to play catch-up big time. Yeah, maybe me, one of the major capitalists who actually is responsible for the destruction of the civil society, is saying, yeah, we should probably actually care about maintaining the system to any degree. Like, this is how much of a failure we are, dude, right? Yeah, BMO wants wages to go up while they will be raising interest rates to squash wage growth. Yeah. It doesn't need to make sense, bud. We don't need a society that makes sense. We don't need to deal with the internal contradictions of capital. No, fuck you. We just need to say that we want to do it. And honestly, dude, like, the reason why this guy is saying this is so that he can, like, sleep at night. So that he can go, well, I did my best. Yeah, we either need to moderate inflation or wages need to go up. I'll sleep tonight. Right? Like, there's a good... I think that there's a good degree of this. Like, I've been listening to reports, and I've been hearing politicians say more and more that, like, these conservative types know that what they're doing, right? They know what they're doing. They know that they're abandoning people. They're aware of it, right? And many of them are ashamed of it, right? And like they can't. I am of the opinion, like we've seen from Doug Ford's caucus, we've seen a slew of resignations recently, right? And I think that that's what's doing it. That literally, you have all of these conservative-minded people who like want to be elected on conservative principles and all this, and they see what Doug Ford is doing. They see what their party has become, and they go, "Oh, this is monstrous. Like this is evil." But instead of actually growing a pair, speaking out against Doug Ford, and actually working to ameliorate any of it, they're just going to retreat to their palaces the way that they do, right? And they'll just die shamefully. You live in a society, George Costanza. I just increased my food storage. I bought a whole bunch of beans and rice. When the president of the United States says there's going to be a food shortage, I tend to believe him. I have a bag of rice myself. You know, I tend to not buy in so much about this, but I gotta be honest. Like, buy a bunch of canned goods, buy rice, right? Food storage, right? It might matter, really might matter. Ugh. I don't know anything about Rod Phillips, but like, is that gonna come up? No. If you like democracy, you should oppose capitalism. From the Jacobin. This is probably a good article, but I'm out of time, so I'm not going to read it. Let's just read the socialism emerged from the French Revolution's demand for liberty, equality, and solidarity. And democratic socialists have long prided ourselves for our concern for equality and solidarity. Socialism for Socialists reminds us that political liberty is absolutely central to socialism, too. So I'm just going to assume that what he's saying is that we should guillotine the rich. Yeah. Because, you know, if socialism emerged from the French Revolution, just think about what will emerge from an American Revolution, right? I feel like this is actually... Yeah. Yeah, police play Disney tunes to prevent video of them on patrol being posted online. Like... I can't even sing it because I'll just get completely fucked. But like, oh yeah. This is a great one. Canadian Housing Statistics Program, 2019. Multiple property owners own 31% of residential properties in Ontario. What's going on in the housing market? What's happening? Right? Top 10% of owners earn more than the bottom 50% combined. All right, what's happening in the society? I can't possibly fucking imagine. Urban homeowners have double the income of renters. Yeah, because they've got whatever earnings they're making, and then they've got our earnings as well. Right? Like, that's how it works. Right? So if they're working a job... Right? They're making the money from their job, and then they're also getting our money. So, of course, they've got double the fucking income of renters. Like, fuck these landlords so hard, man. Like, landlordism, get completely fucked. Like, get totally fucked. It's so overtly and obviously just a transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich. That's all. That if you're lucky enough to get in at the right time, and just own property and just be a landlord, right? Then you're essentially just like increasing your income because you're parasitic wealth. That's all it is. It's like ticket scalping, right? Like we don't respect ticket scalpers, but when it comes to housing, we're just like, yeah, that's great. Brilliance. RBC calls spring peak for Canadian housing, sees prices falling in 2023. I doubt it. What's their rationale, right? We now expect home resale activity to slow more quickly than previously anticipated, and perhaps more important, we see prices peaking. Like, no. Like, no. right? Like, the market is no longer a buying and selling market. Like, it's no longer... Yeah, falling to what level, right? It'll up to they don't even say, right? Like, what these guys... Oh, here you go. He estimates home sales activity will fall 13%. But this is home sales, right? That won't translate into lower average prices. As RBC sees aggregate prices up, he says he expects price declines will be uneven on a geographic basis. Right? They're just talking shit, dude. His rationale is rectal abacus numbers. Exactly. Right? He's just pulling numbers out of his fucking ass. Like, the reality is that the market's been bought by an investor class. Right? We're seeing it right here. Right? The market's being bought by an investor class. Right? And they're not buying these properties in order to turn around and sell them. Right? Which has always been like the mindset. Right? The mindset of the failed neoliberal economists have always been, oh, they buy the house, they improve the house, they turn around and sell the house. Right? Or they buy the house, improve the house, and rent it. Right? But now there's a new behavior that exists in the market, which is we buy the house and sit on it. That's what they're doing. They're not buying the house to turn around and sell it. They're not buying the house to rent it. They're not doing any of that, right? That they're literally buying the property to have the property. That's it. They don't need the wealth from it, right? They don't need the passive income, right? To them, that's just a hassle, right? That's just a hassle to them. They don't want to deal with a property company. They don't want to deal with any of this kind of stuff. Why? Right? Because they're already billionaires, right? To them, this is just money storage. That's all it is. It's just money storage. Because if you're in an economy that is about to experience a massive decline, which it obviously is, you'd have to be a complete Luddite to think anything else, then you want to have your money invested in hard assets, right? People like are saying like gold, right? People always talk about that kind of thing, right? Time to buy gold, time to buy silver, right? Time to have hard assets that you want to have your money in, because the money itself is going to decline and be in major flux, right? So what's the hardest asset that exists? Land. Land is the hardest asset that exists. And what that means is that when the whole thing goes into the collapse, when the Great Reset occurs, right, when everything collapses, right, well, at least we've got this property. At least we've got this parcel of land, right? And sure, there's a house on it. They don't care about the house, by the way. Like, they don't care about the house at all. Like, the fact that there's a house on it is irrelevant, right? It's the land, right? That's what really matters. And there's no conversation about this reality that's going on in the society. That the reason why these properties are being bought is not so that they can reinvest in a market that's collapsing. Right? It's so that when the market collapses, they'll have access to the land. My dad is a realtor, and he confirmed in the last few years houses pretty much came with the land. Yep, it was the land that was valuable. Yeah. Like, that's why all of these houses are shit. Right? That's why they're so shittily built. Right? I'm seeing videos of people walking onto a lot of these properties, and like, railings aren't installed properly, faucets aren't installed properly, like a kitchen flooring and living room flooring are not connected properly, right? There's huge gaps and things like this, right? Like, there's major problems. And of course, the guy that's doing a video like this is doing it like, man, we got to get better inspectors in here and all this kind of stuff. But the reality is is that the house is just there as like a showpiece. Like the house is not the point, right? It's just there so that they can sell it. So of course they've built it as fast and as cheaply as possible so that they have something to like show, to be like, look, this plot of land already has a house on it. If you want it to be here, Mr. Billionaire, and if you don't want it to be here, you can just knock it over, right? Which many of them will, right? Hexagonal boron nitride is harder than diamond. Look at this. Once you have a parcel of land, the cops still exist to enforce your legal deed. Exactly. But you only have a parcel of land if the cops still exist to enforce your legal deed. Yeah. Which is why they're, what's the one thing that the wealthy are investing in? What's the one thing that they're willing to spend money on? Right? Cops. They're willing to spend infinite amounts of money on cops and war. Right? Because they know. Have you seen the price of dirt bikes lately? I have a few, and no way I will sell them because they appreciate by 20% per year. No kidding. Really? Dirt bikes are appreciating in value by 20%? Are you kidding me? Like, when has that ever occurred in human history? Like, the joke always was when you get a vehicle and you drive it off the lot, it immediately loses like 20% of its value. Right? But to see like dirt bikes appreciating in value? Are you kidding? That's hilarious. How could that even be the case? That's wild to me. Super wild. That's just Reddit. And then this, oops, oh well. This is the Firestone. Basic facts on Firestone. The Firestone Tire and Rubber Company operated the world's largest rubber plantation in the world in Liberia for over 80 years. Signed a concession agreement with the government of Libya to lease over 1 million acres of land in 1926 for 6 cents per acre for a period of 99 years. In 2005, Firestone signed a new 37-deal agreement with a transitional government in Liberia, to lease the land for 50 cents per acre. All rubber produced in Liberia is sent to the United States for processing into tires, and no processing or manufacturing is done in Liberia. Oh, it uses child labor, right? Isn't that fun? Firestone workers must tap trees in order to extract the latex necessary for making rubber tires. The rubber tappers must meet a daily production quota of their already low wages will be halved. By Firestone Natural Rubber Company CEO's Dan Adomaitis' own admission on CNN, it would take over 21 hours to meet the quota. As a result, tappers are forced to bring their children and wives to work. Children are forced to carry 2 70-pound buckets of rubber on their shoulders for miles. Tappers and their children must apply toxic pesticides without protection. Firestone workers in Liberia lived in cramped shacks, which have not been renovated since the 20s, and lack electricity, running water, and indoor latrines. Meanwhile, Firestone managers have huge houses with all modern conveniences and even golf courses. Educational and health facilities are understaffed and lacking resources and are often located much too far from housing units for workers and their families to access. Additionally, Firestone uses the labor of a large number of subcontractors who are not offered benefits. Historically, Firestone has negotiated with a union that is not democratic or independent from the management. In July 27, the first free and fair union elections were held in the plantation's history, but it took 5 months, a 2-week strike, a Supreme Court lawsuit, an international outcry for Firestone to recognize the elected union leadership. The union is currently negotiating a new collective bargaining agreement with Firestone management. As the Environmental Protection Agency of Liberia recently confirmed, Firestone dumps toxic chemicals into local rivers, like the Farmington River, used by the community for bathing and fishing. The pollution has caused serious health problems for communities surrounding the plantation and has killed off some forms of river life. Capitalism, baby. Capitalism. The free market, so fucking efficient. Liberia, where freed slaves went from the U.S. back to Africa, still being exploited, yeah. In Boxburg, someone shot a police officer. Their home was raided, and they found a machine gun, a knife, bearing a swastika, an axe, Prussian flag, ammunition, Nazi memorabilia. Crazy, dude. Liberia is a libertarian paradise. Yeah, no shit. Like fucking libertarians, dude. Like they're nuts. Like they're nuts. Like they're and as the libertarians gain more steam and start to band up, right? They're getting crazier, right? Like literally saying things like, "Yeah, we should just abandon people to starvation and poverty," right? Yeah, if they can't feed themselves, then they shouldn't be fed. Like nut job stuff. Like nut job stuff. Like it's steadily becoming a movement for the psychopaths to just be open about their psychopathic behavior. It's a 94 Suzuki RM250. Very rare because it was hated at the time. Oh, it's that kind of thing. Like you have something that at the time was no good, but now people have a different view of it. And because nobody picked it up, there's probably only a few in the market. So now it's become like a precious commodity. Now it's a collector's item, right? Jeez. It's a fake country set up by the US. You know what, man? I honestly, I actually don't know that much about Liberia, right? But it looks like it. Like it looks like it. Looks like they just carved off like a little piece and are just like, yeah, this is fine. This will be a country. Aren't the far right in Germany waiting for day X where they will start the fascist takeover again? I mean, you listen to the rhetoric that's surrounding Ukraine in regards to Germany, and like, Germany's sitting there being like, yeah, so we're going to march across Poland and go into Ukraine, right? Like, that's what you're saying we should do? Look at their flags. Dude, let's go. Liberia flag. Like they're not even trying. They're literally like, just America, but with one star. Just one star, America. USA. USA. Like they're not even trying. Oh, dude. Okay. Liberia provincial flags. Province flags. What? All Liberian county flags. Is this real? This isn't real. No, this is bullshit. Right? No. Yeah, these are all fucking bullshit. No. No, they're not. These aren't real. You're telling me these are real? The horrifying flags of the regions of Liberia. Are you actually serious about this? No fucking way, dude. Graphic design is my passion. Dude, these are real. Like, these are real? Fuck you. Like, fuck this disrespectful nonsense. Like, this is some disrespect. Like, this is just, you don't, like, fuck you. Like, there is no way. There is no, first of all, every single one of them has got this goddamn garish bullshit on it. Like, literally, USA flag with one star, right? But, like, at least if they are for U.S. shell corporations, like, at least make something that doesn't look like a 5-year-old made it in MS Paint. Like, look at this shit. Like, this is terrible. This one here is my favorite. Literally, like, trees floating up here, like a river to a tree that looks... Yeah, looks like... That's why I didn't believe it. I'm just like, there's no way. Like, these look like they're made by 5-year-olds, right? Like, this is... You know it's bad when you make something that's worse than Canada's flag. Yeah, river coming from a tree. Right, this one here. Like, what is this? Like, or like this one here is like white, where it's like, I guess this is supposed to be mountains, but it's just like a green blob, right? It's just a fucking green blob. Yeah, not pictured toxic pollution in the river. That's right. They should have a dude just like dumping toxic pollution into this river right here to keep it accurate. My favorite, just a diamond. Just a fucking diamond. They got a tree in the corner, but it's the diamond that really fucking matters, guys. Why? Because there's obviously like slave diamond mines here. Like, fuck, dude. Fuck. Oh, okay. It's a green pile of spinach. All right, guys. We've made it to the end. Let's end with this picture. Always remember, guys, each and every one of you is a quantum being walking around in quantum energy. The billionaire class spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the pale hope that you won't realize it. You'll just stay the good little commodity they need you to be. Rebel, revolt, repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.